Events begin to take place in the northwestern border guard station of Huaxia. A secret operation begins, with many soldiers entering the border guard station and taking the lives of the soldiers who were protecting it. One of the soldiers indicated that the path had been cleared and there was nothing suspicious anymore. Many soldiers began to enter the building to conduct further investigation. The mysterious man asked the soldiers who broke into the premises how things were going with them. In turn, the commander answered him that everything was clear and the danger had passed. At first, the mysterious man breathed a sigh of relief, because he felt that he was no longer in danger. After that, he reported to Mr. Bai that everything had been settled. An elderly man who looked like a philanthropist heard that earlier everyone was saying that their country was a no-go zone for mercenaries. But nevertheless, the army of wild wolves so easily led him to the border. This was indeed the case, because no one knew the true strength of the wild wolves, one of the 5 best mercenary armies in the world. Now they can finally rest after the completed mission. A warrior from the group of wild wolves came closer to report to the captain about the results of the mission. As it turned out, 7 enemies were destroyed, in addition to 1 sentry and a rescue soldier, that is, the total number of destroyed enemies was 9. The man looked at the soldier with apprehension and realized that, according to intelligence data, there should be 10 opponents at this post. Lightning Captain shouted that the mission was cancelled, and they needed to clear the battlefield quickly and retreat immediately. In order to escape from the scene, the captain ordered Mr. Bai to change clothes and do it as quickly as possible. The elderly man began to change clothes, and did not understand why the captain was so worried, because this was just one person. Fearing a bad outcome from the mission, the captain ordered one of the soldiers, nicknamed Viper, to find a guy who had escaped from the mission site. As it turned out, the soldier with the nickname Viper was Sniper, who was on the southwestern border. The sniper was ordered to eliminate the target, and then immediately retreat to escape from the scene of the operation. Fortunately, the target was very close and within reach. Suddenly, the guy who was supposed to be the target disappeared behind the cart and was out of sight. With horror, the sniper realized that his target had stopped moving. He was also told on the radio that the spider had detected a radio wave, and there was a suspicion that it was Huaxia Special Forces, which were already approaching and were 10 kilometers away, so the target was lucky this time, and the sniper must retreat. Meanwhile, the same hidden soldier was actually tying his shoelaces behind the cart, and this saved his life. Due to the heavy rain, the soldier was worried that his provisions would get wet, and then he might have problems, after which he asked the horse to hurry up, because the sooner he got to the base, the better it would be for him. Later, the mysterious guy finally returned to the base, where he was supposed to deliver provisions. His soul was not at peace, and he felt something was wrong. His premonition was that he and his comrades were in danger. The tower where the watchman should be, there was absolutely no one there, and this also caused strong fears. Sensing danger, the guy immediately took a knife in order to protect himself and his comrades. Shortly after this, he immediately began to look around to reconnoiter the situation. Unfortunately, he only saw his comrades lying lifeless on the ground and not moving at all. Then memories dawned on him when he played basketball with his comrades. Each of them considered himself a brother, and together they served their state and defended it. From the realization that he would never be able to talk to his comrades again, the soldier realized that he was late, because he could not help. Tears rolled into his eyes and flowed down his cheeks after the rain. The desperate soldier looked at his brothers, captain, and asked them to watch him from heaven, because he wanted to find those who did this. And with the same blade that was previously their symbol. In a fit of anger, the guy promised to make the opponents who had done this pay with their lives. Leaving the military base, a landscape of cold and dim forest opened before him. Walking through the moisture-soaked area, the heroes watched as the opponents who did terrible things left their traces, and he gradually walked along them. Based on the broken branches and dirty footprints, the guy determined that the opponents didn't even try to hide them. It looks like he needs to be more careful in the future. Suddenly, there was a strong explosion, and smoke from the explosion began to rise above the trees. Seeing what was happening, the soldier thought that fire had been opened on the opponents, as if their country's special forces were already here, and they were very close to him. Peeking out from behind a tree, the alarmed soldier discovered the silhouette of a man standing opposite him. What he saw stunned him, and then he heard the sound of a shot. The man himself began to shoot at the tree, and at the guy himself, and he miraculously was able to dodge a large number of bullets. The Special Forces officer also realized from the silhouette that it was a girl and he wanted to understand what she was doing with these guys. Feeling very worried about the situation that arose with him, the guy still tried to look out from behind the tree to see where the same girl was hiding. Behind him, someone put a gun to his head, and the guy, feeling this, did not understand at all what to do. Experiencing severe stress, the experienced soldier thought that the girl did not immediately shoot at him, and this was a good sign. Turning his gaze, the guy noticed that she should not shoot, because he was on her side and was an ally. The mysterious girl who put the gun to her head wanted to find out from the soldier what his rank, name, and position were. Continuing to hold the soldier at gunpoint, she ordered him to turn slowly. The stunned hero gradually turned around and begged the girl not to shoot. Reacting instantly, the soldier threw the girl to the ground, because he saw something dangerous. It was a bullet that was flying straight at her. The same bullet almost hit the mysterious lady, and she watched in embarrassment as the commando lay on top of her. After a few seconds of awkward eye contact, they continued to look at each other and lay on the floor. The embarrassed professional soldier felt awkward and began to apologize. Not realizing why he did this, the girl began to shoot from her pistol directly at the hero, having previously thrown him several meters forward. Fortunately, all the shots missed, and were not fired at the soldier himself. Several well-aimed shots hit the bushes, from where the shot was fired that was going to hit the girl. The lady ordered the hero to bend down, because someone was sitting in the bushes, and he needed to hide quickly in order to hit the target. The shots did not stop, and their accuracy was amazing, because each shot was almost a centimeter from its target. Reacting mentally, the hero realized that there was a sniper sitting behind the trees on the other side, and the mysterious lady only had a pistol, and she needed to help her. At that moment he saw a machine gun that was lying not far from the soldier who had previously lost his life. Using his skill, the soldier decided to first throw the briefcase so that the sniper would hit it as a target, and then threw the girl a machine gun with an optical sight. Having received the expected weapon, the girl jumped to the side with lightning speed to make several well-aimed shots at the target. Seeing the enemy, she immediately began to shoot at him, aiming exactly at the scoundrel who was trying to finish them off. Unfortunately, the girl was also hit by several well-aimed shots and was wounded in the leg. At the same time, the sniper himself, who was sitting earlier behind the bushes, was also hit, only at a more critical point, which is why he began to fall to the floor in a lifeless state. Fleeing for the girl's life, the hero began to run to her in order to help. She immediately covered his mouth, because he needed to be as quiet as possible. A few minutes later, in order to stop the wound from becoming infected, the mysterious girl asked to give her a first aid kit. Having received what she wanted, she immediately began to treat the wound and began carrying out disinfection procedures. In great pain and despair, she used deft movements to do everything possible to heal her newly acquired gunshot wound. Due to severe stress, it was difficult for her to do anything, and she understood that it was necessary to first do a bandage, and then immediately leave this place. After all, if they stay here longer, the rest of the opponents will soon find them. Suddenly, someone started screaming and asking the girl if she was hurt. The hero immediately realized that he needed to react and wanted to find a gun. Handing the pistol to the soldier, the lady wanted to know if he was afraid to die. The guy was really afraid of this, because earlier opponents decided the lives of all his comrades, and in the end, he is still a man and must take revenge on them. Fixing his gaze, the determined lady said that the trees could create a dead zone. He needed to go and hide around the nearest corner. Thanks to those very trees, he may be able to survive, but everything depends only on him. Finally, the hero wanted to know the girl's name so that he would know it before going on a life-threatening mission. Experiencing severe pain, at that moment the soldier looked at him and said that if he wants to know her name, he must first survive. Thanks to such a good incentive, the hero immediately began to run to the side for cover, and many shots were fired at him. Fortunately, not one of them hit the target exactly, and this did not stop the determined soldier. Meanwhile, the arrogant soldier who shot at the hero shouted to the girls that he needed that guy, and they needed to throw down their weapons and get to know each other better. Literally a second later, the angry hero began to attack the villain who shot at him. Using a daring move, he jumped out and started firing his pistol. With the help of several accurate hits, the insolent enemy began to fall to the ground, and was already lifeless. After searching the scoundrel's body, the heroes discovered that he had the vice-captain's dagger. Looking at the lifeless body, the guy realized that this killer really got off easy. Suddenly, several more silhouettes of soldiers appeared in the forest and gradually approached. The lady immediately shouted that enemy reinforcements had arrived and they needed to retreat. To make it easier to shoot back, they took enemy machine guns. As it turned out, the early hero only shot from an old shotgun, and does not know how to use this weapon, so a simple pistol will be enough for him. Fortunately, the girl had an M16A4 assault rifle in her hands, its kill zone was 600 m, a magazine of 30 rounds, and also an optical sight. There were 3 shooting modes, namely, rapid fire, burst and automatic. Despite the lack of experience, the girl still decided to give him a machine gun and ordered him to shoot when he took the safety off. The newly acquired find delighted the hero, and he introduced himself. His name was Luo Zheng. He wanted to know the girl's name, because she had not yet said it, but they had escaped death together. Suddenly, the girl felt strange sensations, and her face was covered with perspiration. Suddenly, the girl suddenly began to fall to the ground, and Luo Zheng immediately began to ask what was happening to her, but she turned out to be unconscious. After some time, they sat together near the fire, which was built in order to keep warm. The caring guy decided to give the girl a new bandage to the soldier so that infection would not occur through her wound. And also, he found some leaves in the forest and began to chew them. Once the leaves were alive, he began to put them in the girl's mouth, releasing green juice from them. Having done this, he understood that after these herbs the mysterious soldier should feel much better. All this time, unfortunately, she was unconscious and could not even explain what was really happening to her. Some time later, the lady began to gradually open her eyes and regain consciousness. Opening her eyes, she found the guy who saved her. She couldn't recognize him right away, and began to reach for the machine gun, because she thought it was an enemy. Noticing that the girl had finally woken up, he asked her not to worry, because the horn would sound when the opponents had already left, otherwise they would have caught them long ago. With apprehension, the girl asked if he had saved her. Luo Zheng explained that this was indeed the case, and she had recently taken the herbs, so for now, she needed to rest for a while. The caring soldier was ready to cover her all this time while she rested from the stress and serious injury she experienced. Closing his eyes, the guy began to have memories. He recalled how he and his comrades were walking through a forest area. One of the comrades noticed that Luo was very hardy, as if his family had passed on some family martial arts to him. As it turned out, his entire family had previously been hunters, and there could be no family martial arts. But he knew a few secrets of breathing that help restore strength during the hunt. Suddenly, his memories began to flood through. Opening his eyes, Luo Zheng promised himself that he would definitely avenge all his brothers. Meanwhile, the girl watched the hero closely, and thought that he had actually fallen asleep. Turning his gaze, the experienced hunter explained that he was used to resting like this, and it seemed that the herbs he had previously given were working. Luo Zheng decided to ask the girl if she knew how they could contact their country, and she also needed to take a weapon and remember to consume more of these herbs. At the same time he was going to go after those freaks. It turned out that they were abroad, and he did not have any means of communication or geolocation. Other means of communication and geolocation will immediately give him away, and this stunned the guy. At that moment the lady asked to tell her your name and status because she could at least help with sending the message. The hero just looked at her and said that she should know military discipline, because she is also a soldier, and she should take care of herself, because he hoped that they would meet again. Immediately after that, he started to leave, but the mysterious girl immediately stopped him. She believed that the hero was a qualified soldier of Wuxia, but if he went alone now, he would only be killed. Turning around, the guy asked her in surprise what she wanted to say. Right in Luo Zheng's eyes, she explained that her mission must be completed, but now she is injured and cannot do it alone. The hero guessed that she would like them to work together. This is because he has good fighting and shooting skills, and the lady can give him some knowledge about combat, which will help him in carrying out his revenge. Greatly surprised, he immediately realized that they still had a common enemy and he was alone. Luo Zheng's initiative greatly pleased the girl, because she knew exactly how they needed to resist against a crowd of enemies. Meanwhile, the guy himself was looking forward to their work together all this time. After shaking hands, the girl introduced herself. Her name was Yurine Lan Xiong. Luo Zheng was sincerely glad that they finally got to know each other better. I noticed that the girl was still very weak. The hero said that he would bring them food, and she needed to be here and rest. Some time later, a caring boy brought food and began to fry it over the fire. Meanwhile, the soldier's girlfriend recalled the events that happened earlier. Namely, the moment when Luo Zheng passed the chewed poisonous berries into Yurina Lanxiong's mouth. Realizing this, she began to feel very awkward and blushed. Then she said that they must first go to where they had encountered the enemy yesterday, between which she was going to give him his first lesson in surviving in the jungle, and tracking down his tracks. The guy needed to try to remember the stones lying along the road and the forks that they passed yesterday, because they could use such things as a guide to return there again. Luckily, it was very dark on the way at that moment, and Luo Zheng didn't pay attention to it because he was trying to save their lives. Hearing this, the girl realized that it was not so scary if he did not remember the way, and they could follow the tracks that the animals could take. Also an animal, so sometimes they instinctively follow these animal tracks, and then the lady wanted to know if the hero knew how to track wild animals. He really knew, because he comes from a family of hunters, thanks to which he previously earned his living. Then the girl realized that in this case he did not need to explain how to track the tracks. Realizing that they had a long way to go, the hero invited the girl to take a roasted rabbit and refresh herself. Initially, she couldn't believe that she would be the first to eat, and asked the soldier if he was hungry, but he only said that patience should be a priority. Looking at her savior, the girl thought that he seemed like a pretty nice guy, although a little reckless. Some time later, when it was light enough on the street, they set off. Having initially armed themselves and taking all the equipment, they made their way through the forests. Suddenly, with great surprise, the soldier discovered some berries that he wanted to try to eat. With pleasure, he began to eat the berries that were hanging on the branches, and invited the girl to eat them too. Unfortunately, after eating the berries, they got a severe stomach ache, because they were berries that should not be eaten. They continued on their way and walked through the mysterious forest, passing many tests from the wild. The soldier carried the girl on himself, because she was wounded in the leg, and it was difficult for her to move independently. Events continued to happen the next morning, and they finally found some clues. It was going to rain soon, they needed to hurry to catch up with their opponents. Luo Zheng explained that now the lady should not move so fast and get caught in the rain, because they still have time, and there is no point in rushing. Then the girl listened to him and realized that she could sit out in their camp, so they would save their time. The guy, we learn that he has been hunting since he was a child, and with a little guidance he is doing great at developing his survival skills. He also had no problems with the basic military sign language, so now Yurina Lanxiong was going to teach him how to use a sniper rifle. Hearing this, the hero felt incredible joy, because he had always dreamed of shooting from a gun of this level. It looks much more powerful than these old pistols that he was used to. The lady explained that the first step was to learn how to counterattack, otherwise he would not even be able to defend himself. At that moment, from the sad look of the girl, the hero guessed that the sniper rifle had previously belonged to her friend. With sadness and regret in her eyes, Yurina admitted that this was indeed the case. Overcoming negative emotions, the heroine threw the sniper rifle so that the soldier could get acquainted with it. After all, her pants were wet, and if she didn't change them, she would infect her wound. Then the girl decided to start changing them right now, ordering the hero not to look at her. Soon she finally undressed and sat near the fire in order to dry off and bandage the wound. As if nothing had happened, Luo Zheng turned and began to watch the girl. Confused, the lady asked him if he liked what he saw. The stunned guy immediately jumped up and said that he really liked it, but then began to deny it, because he realized that he should not have looked at her. Smiling, Lan Xiong told Yurina that if they both could return alive, then she would definitely make her own decision. Night fell, and the beautiful sky said goodbye over the endless forest. Following in the footsteps of the enemy, the heroes thought that they would soon catch up with the villains. But you still need to speed up, because the moon illuminates the road well, so you have to walk all night. Although it was difficult to move due to fatigue, Luo Zheng was all for it, because he wanted to quickly avenge his brothers. And also, he thought about the fact that he could not lose to a girl who had only recently recovered from a serious injury. Fortunately, with the help of breathing techniques he was able to fight fatigue and overcome any difficulties. With surprise, Yurina Lanxiong continued to watch the guy who was trying with all his might to catch up with her, even though it was difficult for him. At that moment, she thought that even though he had not undergone special combat training, he was still quite capable. Perhaps he was not who he said he was. Suddenly, the lady discovered something amazing. Smoke came into her field of vision, which probably came from a fire that was nearby, and it seemed to them that the enemy was very close. Together they began to hide behind the trees and watch the camp, which was in the grip of the villains. The concerned guy wanted to ask the girl what they should do. She explained that she knows that Luo Zhang wants revenge, but he should always have his life as a priority over the death of his enemies. But since they set up camp here, they must have lowered their guard. Because of this, it is first necessary to reconnoiter the situation. Gradually approaching the enemy camp, they did everything possible to remain unnoticed. Using an optical sight, it was possible to detect soldiers who were talking about something with their leader. At the moment of aiming, the girl asked the hero if he saw the Asian man who was next to the enemy soldiers. As it turned out, he is a traitor and knows strategic secrets at the national level, which is why he must die. The girl's plan was that they would surround the enemies on both sides, and return to this position when the main target was removed. And also, the main thing in this mission is to survive, the girl noted. Looking at her, the heroes answered in the affirmative and said that this also applies to her. Slowly and confidently, the heroes approached the villains who were sitting in their camp. Using an optical sight, Luo Zhang observed the enemies who were not far from the camp. At the moment of aiming, he thought that the bullet would travel along a parabola. After 15 minutes, a pistol cartridge begins to deviate by a slight curvature. For a rifle cartridge, it will begin to be observed after 70 minutes, so the bullet and sniper rifles must travel this distance to the target. Aiming at the enemy's torso, suddenly someone shoots him right in the head, and he begins to fall lifeless to the floor. The stunned hero, watching everything that is happening, does not understand what is happening here and who did it. With targeted shots, someone was able to hit several opponents in just a second. Then the guy did not understand that it was Yurin Lanxiong, who was able to kill the opponents in a matter of seconds. Meanwhile, the girl sat and waited for the next opponents, who might be not far from them. Sensing great danger, Luo Zhang made his way closer to the opponents who had decided from life in order to check their bodies. Slowly and confidently, the hero crawled along the floor and discovered a grenade that was lying under one of the soldiers. As a friend, someone behind him said that he had left a gift under his partner's body. It was a sniper who was hiding in the bushes, and the guy immediately felt that something was wrong with the body, and it seemed that the enemies were nearby. Experiencing great fear, the guy understood that his opponents were very cunning and would do everything possible to win. The sniper tried to track down his targets to destroy them with the sniper rifle in his hands. The hero's hands reflected, and he felt that the sniper would notice him now. At the same time, he remembered the words of Yurina Lanxiong, who told him that she was at close range and needed to use the sniper rifle as a shotgun. Without hesitation at all, the main character aimed his sniper rifle at the enemy, and thereby scared him. The reaction was immediate, and the enemy also took out his rifle and began to aim at the soldier. With a strong blow, the guy was able to knock the rifle out of the enemy's hands, and he thereby began to scream in pain, because his hand was damaged. Taking his knife out of the scissors, the hero leaned on the villain, and thus was easily able to neutralize him. The lifeless body of the enemy lay on the ground, and the hero was proud of himself, because he was able to take revenge on the first warrior who finished off his brothers. Looking at the body, he also realized that he could use all the resources he had. Luo Zhang grabbed the equipment and disguise of an enemy soldier, and put it on himself in order to disguise himself while sitting on a tree. While sitting in a tree, he also discovered that his partner had attracted the attention of enemies, and perhaps the name will actually be able to find their camp and do something serious. Fortunately, using my optical sight, the hero still found the enemy base, where there were many enemy soldiers. Taking aim at the main criminal, Luo Zhang understood that now he only had one chance, and there was no room for error. There is no more time to waste, or Yurina Lanxiong may be in danger. At that moment, the main character decided to make his shot in order to destroy the most important enemy, who was at the enemy base. Many shots were heard, indicating that there were still many rivals in the forest. The lady immediately realized that something was wrong, and Luo Zhang was exchanging fire with the enemy. She noticed that the soldiers were heading somewhere and were alarmed. As it turned out, they were standing over the body of their boss, who was lying lifeless on the ground. Suddenly, one of the soldiers turned around because he felt that someone was behind him. It was a girl who hid behind a tree and wanted to remain unnoticed with all her might. At first she thought that this guy didn't even know how lucky he was, and then she heard several shots again, and realized that Luo Zhang must definitely survive. Experiencing a strong shock, the guy ran only forward, and thought that he had fulfilled his duty to his country. And now it's time for revenge on the enemies who did terrible things to his brothers. Many shots were fired, and the bullets flew right next to the guy, and he dodged them with all his might. Hiding behind a tree, he thought about when they would stop pursuing him. The enemies behaved as if mad dogs. A group of 3 soldiers were heading straight towards the guy, and they wanted to destroy him. The enemies called Luo Zhang a puppy and ordered him to leave, because he had no time to run. Then he remembered the grenade that was in his pocket. Taking out a pin from it, he began to count down, after which, he threw his gun, and thereby diverted the attention of the enemy soldiers. The soldiers immediately began shooting at the abandoned machine gun, because they thought it was the enemy. The field flew only into the machine gun, and accordingly, no harm was done to the hero at all. Taking advantage of the opportunity, Luo Zhang threw a grenade, which exploded right under the opponent's feet, and the fire engulfed part of the forest where there were many scoundrels. After waiting a few seconds, the guy went to his weapon to pick it up and continue to fight with the rest of the scoundrels. Suddenly, some soldier approached him and began to aim his rifle, after which he wanted to fire a shot. The hero was stunned by this. He did not expect that there were still opponents near him. Fortunately, someone shot at the villain, and he began to fall to the floor, because the hit was made directly in the head. At the same time, the hero breathed a sigh of relief, but was still worried that the enemies would be nearby. Meanwhile, Yurin Lanxiong came out of the ambush where she had been all this time, and said that it seemed that she had saved the guy again. Smiling, but fearing his enemies, the hero still answered her that he was grateful for the rescue. The hero was also glad that she was okay and asked if the enemies were retreating. As it turned out, the person they were guarding was killed, plus they lost most of their forces, and now they are retreating. It is no longer possible to catch up with them. Listening to all this, Luo Zhang only understood that the enemies got off too easily, and wanted to find out from the girl what they should do next. Immediately the girl said that it was time to return home. Some time later, after several days, events continued to occur on the northeastern border of Huaxiao. The heroes stood on the border, and the guy tried to prove that he was really on the side of the soldiers who pointed their guns at them. Fortunately, the captain was given information from the headquarters, and they said that there was indeed someone on the watchtower named Luo Zhang, who was listed as missing. And Yurin Lanxiong had a secret mission, and the soldiers did not have enough authority to find out the details, so she asked permission to contact her superiors. Without hesitation, the captain ordered the soldier to give her a walkie-talkie so she could call her superiors. I took the walkie-talkie in my hands. The girl said that she had finally returned and needed to be picked up from the Huaxia border. Specially appointed people would arrive later and deal with them separately, so Lady suggested that Luo Zhang wait for them here. Meanwhile, the soldiers were communicating with each other, and did I really think this girl was someone, because she said that this was a secret mission? He looked at the girl. The hero was only glad about this outcome of events and that everything was finally over. So she went on to say that she would be taken away soon, and he needed to continue practicing the basic shooting skills that she taught him. After all, he really has good potential, and you shouldn't waste your talent. A few minutes later, a helicopter arrived and hovered directly above the heroes. Armed soldiers came out of it and came for the girl. What he saw amazed the guy, because he did not expect that so many soldiers would be sent to take the girl away. Yurina Lanxiong decided to hug the guy one last time, because he saved her. The girl also told him not to forget about promises, namely, about a promise that should come true in 2 years. Turning around to the hero, the girl also said that she hoped that they would meet again. The guy watched her as her helicopter flew away, and with it the girl herself. Then the guy promised himself that at any cost he would meet the girl in the future, because he promised her this. The events took place 2 days ago. Luo Zhang began to remember what happened earlier. The brave guy was amazed that Yurin Lanxiong agreed to thank him, and did not understand whether it was wise for them to do this. Then the girl told him that he helped her in completing the mission, so this should be his reward. She wasn't even scared, and the guy shouldn't worry either. What he heard shocked him even more, but he knew it was time to act. At that moment, the girl became indignant and asked him what he was worth, because he needed to take things off, as if it was necessary to give instructions even in this. Embarrassed and blushing, the hero nevertheless began to take off his clothes and camouflage. The lady was shocked that the hero was a novice. It seemed like he had never undergone systematic training before. She had always believed that his potential and ability to learn quickly would allow him to rise far above a simple sentry, and did not understand why he was assigned there. He blushed even more from what he heard, because he thought that she considered him much better than he really was. Watching him closely, she said, if there is something he doesn't want to talk about, but then she thought that she was just helping the troops by training newcomers. And she decided to say it only once so that he would remember it, and this does not count as some kind of private lesson in combat training, because she thought that the organization would understand her. The slightly dumbfounded hero thought that the girl was so prudent that she even came up with an excuse for the organization. And then she decided to talk about the fact that snipers are considered the core of special forces. They are the ones who can influence the outcome of the battle, and he has the potential to become a top-class sniper. Sniper techniques are classified according to their reliance on sight or sensation, the former requiring the sniper to make eye contact with the target, and the latter relying on instinct and intuition. At that moment, she concluded that he had previously shot the enemy intuitively, although she didn't even know how he learned it, but since he already had some basic knowledge, then there was no need to worry about visual shooting, he just needed to continue mastering sensual shooting. After thinking a little, he realized that his family had been hunting for centuries, so some training methods were given to him, as an example of relying not on the head, but on the feeling to predict where the prey is, the distance to it, and the like, and this is similar to the principle the girl was talking about. This was indeed the case, and the lady asked him to promise that he would not waste his talent, and in 2 years he would surpass her. Hearing this, Luo Zhang could not believe and understand how this was possible, because the girl was so strong that he thought that he would never be able to surpass her. This girl just shouted that she didn't want to hear excuses. After thinking a little, the hero still promised and asked the girl not to be angry with him. She just said that there is no need to apologize, because she just wants him to keep his promise, and she will not be able to forgive him if he does not keep his promise. Crossing their arms, they made a bet in which Luo Zheng promised Yurina Lan Xiong to develop his talent and become much stronger than her in 2 years. At that moment, the embarrassed guy asked to give him 2 years and wait for him. And then, they began to bring their heads closer to each other, closed their eyes, and seemed to want to kiss. Suddenly, the main characters suddenly wake up, and it was just a dream. He is sleeping in a military camp, and the captain calls him to come to him. As it turned out, the man who called him wanted to take him to the regiment commander, and ordered the soldier to get dressed. Some time later, events continued on the regiment's training field. Many soldiers trained and learned how to shoot, as well as march and form in ranks. Watching everything that happened, Luo Zhang was impressed by the greatness of the regiment that was in front of him. Upon seeing him, the girls immediately began to laugh as they watched the rookie walk past them. This made him even more embarrassed, and with fear and anxiety he looked at the girls who were laughing at him. A comrade who was walking next to him noticed that the guy didn't look good, as if he hadn't slept well. Then he admitted that he slept well, but woke up a little at the wrong time. The captain took him to the colonel's office and asked if he had brought the report he was supposed to write. Fortunately, the hero answered in the affirmative, and they headed to the colonel's office. Arriving at the office, the hero introduced himself as a guard on a strange road, Private Luo Zhang. He reported on how he was assigned. The captain was pleased that his soldier looked qualified, and he said that he had been informed earlier about what had happened at the post, and he had read the message that the soldier had left earlier, and the experienced man concluded that the soldier had really done the job well. Closely observing his subordinate, the captain said that soldiers like him, this is a great pride for the army, and saluted him as a sign of respect and recognition. For the guy, this was really a big part, because the captain praised him for the services he had to his motherland. His report also contained an account of everything that had happened previously. The commander knew that what he had gone through in these last days should remain strictly classified, although he could not read his report now, but would do so a little later. When suddenly, someone knocked on the door, the commander told him to come in. A mysterious man, who was also wearing a military uniform, entered the door. The commander was sincerely glad to see the man and said that now the guy himself could give him a report. Turning to look at the mysterious soldier, the hero discovered that his title was 2 stripes and 3 stars, that is, he was a colonel. The newly arrived colonel immediately turned to Luo Zhang, because he wanted to find out as much as possible about the events that took place earlier. Some time later, events continued in the regiment commander's office. Luo Zheng and the regiment commander sat in his office and discussed something. He thought with interest that even the commander was not allowed to listen to their conversation, everything was so secret. At the same time, the colonel himself was closely observed by the guy, and was glad that he wrote the general picture of what happened, but he only had one question. What exactly did the hero feel when he held the enemy at gunpoint? As it turned out, absolutely nothing. The only thing he could think about was how to continue the battle. The man was amused by this answer, and he asked the soldier to relax, because this is a normal conversation and there is no need to use formalities. Then he asked again, was the soldier sure when he shot? Uncertainly and timidly, the hero replied that he was only half ready. Again the man smiled and asked not to address him as sir. In every sentence, he had already said that formality should be avoided, and being confident is already half good for a young soldier, such a difficult situation. After which, he remembered how Yurine Lan Xiong had previously said that she thought that the young soldier had the potential to become a high-class sniper. Then he laughed, after which he said that he simply pointed his finger at the sky when he fought with enemies. This answer only made the experienced colonel laugh even more, and he began to laugh loudly. Immediately after this, he looked into the young man's eyes and asked if he was testing him. The guy immediately began to make excuses, saying that he would not have laughed, because they were an ordinary private, ignoring the post and leaving because of personal revenge was already a violation of the military code. He also added that he may have done something good, but it just compensates for his crime because he feels guilty. At that moment, the general continued to listen to him carefully, and drew a conclusion from each phrase of the soldier. The brave warrior thought that he was invited here to sit in front of the commander himself, and even if he, as the commander-in-chief, talked to him face to face, it would be a great honor for him. Then, alarmed, he wanted to ask what the army really wanted from him. Hearing this question, the commander asked him if he had analyzed the situation well, and asked if he would believe that the colonel wanted to talk to him personally. After thinking about the answer, he realized that the colonel himself came and started looking for him, and even asked the commander to leave, so this was truly a private conversation. Smiling, he again realized that he was not such an important person, although he had attracted the attention of the chief of staff. The man again asked to carefully analyze the situation. Before that, he immediately realized that the guy had a good analytical mind, and asked why he came here. A little dumbfounded and alarmed, the guy tried to find the answer to this question, and at the moment he had not found it yet. The experienced soldier knew that the guy had thoughts on this matter, but he just didn't want to voice them. That's why their little conversation is over, and it's time to get down to business. In surprise, Luo Zheng continued to watch the colonel, and wanted to find out what exactly was the matter. Then the man exclaimed, "The guard of the Northwestern Old Road, Private Luo Zheng." Upon the colonel's call, Private immediately rose from his seat to answer the man. As it turned out, his case was examined by the party committee in the organization, and it was decided that, approved by the Minister General, Luo Zheng was awarded for outstanding personal qualities and was given the Medal of Honor. What he heard shocked the hero even more. He was shocked by this turn of events. Feeling intense joy, he began to reach out to take his newly received reward. His hands were shaking, his heart was beating even faster with every second, because there was no limit to his excitement. He looked at the award that was before his eyes, and for him it was the best event that had ever happened in the army. The shocked guy wanted to clarify whether this was a medal for him or not, because he thought that he would be removed from the army. With a smile, the colonel asked him who told him earlier that he was suspended, because he received a medal, and this is an honor for the Huaxia soldiers. The man also added that, unfortunately, he must understand that this should not be revealed, and is a very secret reward and mission. Due to the need to maintain secrecy, he also unfortunately will not have an award ceremony. The main administration appointed a colonel to issue this medal. Tearing with happiness, the soldier exclaimed that he was truly grateful to the colonel and said that he would continue to serve the motherland. After all, he still deserves it, but he must remember that the medal can be shown to others, but his merits must remain a secret. Headquarters also promotes him to staff sergeant and gives him two options to choose from. The first, to become the leader of the group at the old clock station, the second, to go to a military camp for 3 months of training, and after that, they will decide where it will be possible to send him. Without hesitation, the hero immediately exclaimed that he wanted to go to study. The colonel immediately had doubts, because he missed the rank of lance corporal, corporal and sergeant. Being promoted to senior sergeant, he would already become an echelon officer. If he became a leader at the sentry post, he would immediately be promoted to platoon commander. Without thinking twice, the guy still said that he wanted to study, and this was his final choice. Then the man asked him to get ready, because he was going to arrange for someone to escort the guy to registration. The upset hero also wanted to know about his brothers at the sentry post. They are all good fighters, and the army will give them second-class individual and group awards. There is no need to worry about them, because the army entrusted everything necessary for the funeral, and they will never disgrace their heroes who shed blood for their nation. Walking past the hangar with military equipment, the hero did not notice something amazing above his head. A large number of military helicopters began to fly over him, heading somewhere. Gradually approaching one of his comrades in service, the hero saw him standing with a machine gun at a checkpoint. Coming closer, he greeted his friend and, holding out an envelope, said that he had come for training. A colleague at work immediately told him to follow him, and then they began to go somewhere together in order to begin training. The brave warrior was brought to the formation, where there were a huge number of soldiers who stood with machine guns and in full equipment. Luo Zheng reported that he had arrived for registration, after which he asked to train him. The commander looked at him with an arrogant look, after which he realized that he was the same fighter who was close to the commander. Events continued to take place on the field of a special training camp. The commander ordered to answer his question, because he does not care about his past, and despises those who get places here based on favoritism. In great shock, the guy shouted that he did not come here because of favoritism. Stretching out his hand, the commander pointed to his soldiers who were in the ranks. They were all selected at the end of a special-level military competition, only then were they given the opportunity to train here. 3 days had already passed, first training, and now the soldiers were being squeezed here by organizations. Such an event clearly looked like favoritism. The experienced commander ordered the soldier to listen carefully, because he did not want to waste time on someone like him who came for authority. Therefore, he said that the guy could watch the training, use the equipment, as long as he did not cause problems, then the instructor was going to ignore him. The guy's surprise knew no bounds. He could not have expected what just happened. The man also asked not to worry, because at the end of the training he will be able to vouch for him, and the soldier will receive qualifications, but he will not do this for nothing. In exchange, he will look after the canteen. Then the soldiers realized that trying to explain something was useless, and it's not just that. What if he's really here only because of the colonel's instructions? Luo Zheng realized that there was no point in arguing with the commander, and shouted that he agreed to such conditions and had no objections. Hearing this, the commander was delighted and told where the canteen was located, after which he explained that the soldier would remain there from now on. If he needs something, he just needs to go to the warehouse, and lunch starts at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. If the food is not ready, then he will have a problem. After listening to the captain, the hero only saluted him, obediently carrying out the given order. Meanwhile, the soldiers, listening to all this, whispered among themselves, because they understood how bad this position was. Some time later, the guy was standing in the buffet and preparing food for all the soldiers. Conscientiously following the order, he tried each portion in order to determine whether the dish tasted good. Fortunately, he managed to prepare the food on time. Looking at his watch he realized that it was only 12 o'clock. At any moment the captain himself arrived and decided to see how the recruit was doing. Without hesitation, Luo Zheng reported to him that the food was cooked. Many varieties of food were in containers from which everyone could get as much food as they wanted. The captain shouted for all the brats to come here and attack the food. Some time later, all the soldiers arrived at the canteen to try the food that Luo Zheng had faithfully prepared. Together with everyone else, the hero also ate, and at the same time thought about one thing, namely, over the fact that are all special camps really so cruel, and he really relies on favoritism. But it didn't matter to him, because Yurin Lan Xiong taught him many fighting techniques. If this person does not teach him, then, he will practice on his own. After some time, all the soldiers began their training with running, but the running took place in full equipment and with weapons. Watching all this, the hero was surprised that the run was carried out for 10 kilometers with an incredible load. While preparing food, he trained with dumbbells and did push-ups. And also, watched how other soldiers practice hand-to-hand combat. After a full day of work, the hero went out in the evening and started running 10 kilometers in full gear. Events continued to occur a week later. A wild rattlesnake was attacking an innocent mouse that was running across the lawn. Suddenly, the heroes released their knife, which was easily able to hit the dangerous predator, and thereby protect the weak mouse. With calm, the hero continued to watch as the mouse ran away from the dead snake. And he was also glad that his method of ancestral breathing was getting better and better every time. Although he can only maintain it for about 3 hours, the feeling becomes noticeably worse. Thinking that he had a good hunt, he also realized that running a canteen was not so bad, and even if he walked not far away, he could calmly talk secretly to himself. As he left the forest, he also knew that he would be in trouble if the food was suddenly delayed. Breakfast was almost ready, and the captain asked the soldier to report, but he was still busy and was almost finishing. Then the man asked to be given the opportunity to finish everything himself, and asked the soldier to go and have a quick breakfast, and then start preparing for lunch. Smiling, the guy didn't understand why she was suddenly so polite, and replied that everything was fine, and he would eat later, because there was no reason to rush. The captain shouted that he needed to do what he said and let the soldier go and eat. Luo Zheng was clearly dissatisfied with the captain's behavior, because his character changed very quickly. Taking containers of food from the hero, he shouted that the guy couldn't even be a military cook. Suddenly, someone behind the captain asked if they could start, because everyone was already assembled. Hearing that someone else was speaking besides the instructor, Luo Zheng immediately realized that this voice seemed familiar to him. Some guy asked if they could start breakfast, since everyone was already assembled. In the stranger, Luo Zheng immediately recognized his longtime partner, named Song Yang. The newly arrived guy was also dumbfounded when he saw his friend. Returning to the events that took place a couple of months ago, in the training group of recruits, many soldiers began their training, which was incredibly difficult. Due to the hero's strong stamina, he was able to help his allies overcome the difficulties that faced them. Suddenly, one of his comrades exclaimed that he did not beat anyone, and in general this was not Luo Zheng's business. As it turned out, Song Yan is the young master of the Song family, which is famous all over the world, and the hero will not be happy if he touches him. The guy who beat his partner earlier shouted that he doesn't care about his family, and she is not an authority for him. Luo Zheng didn't care and still hit the scoundrel who was attacking his partners. Some time later, events continued in the training camp cafeteria. The captain was outraged that the guys were busy with the wrong things, and ordered the hero to prepare dinner. Suddenly, the hero realizes that the captain is in cahoots with Song Yan, and they are friends or relatives. But still, he agrees to carry out the captain's order. The impudent guy finally turned to the hero and told him to just wait, and they would meet again. The villain asked the captain why Luo Zheng was here and ordered the captain to simply throw him out, but the man explained that it might not be that easy. And then the impudent man shouted that the Song family's word really didn't mean anything anymore. At the same time, the captain tried to explain that this was not the case, and his entry here was approved by the highest ranks. It would be very difficult for the captain to explain himself to the authorities if he simply threw the soldier out. But also, he asked Mr. Song not to worry, because he perfectly remembered the old agreement with the boss. After all, he ordered Luo Zheng to stay here and cook food for them every day, and also did not teach him anything, so when the time comes, he will fly out of here. And the captain will simply give him a low rating and send him to a guard post in the middle of the wasteland. Song Yan liked this and wanted to take his anger out on him, after which he remembered that the training program allowed for a couple of deaths, but he wanted to know how many. The dumbfounded captain asked the mister not to go that far, because there was no need for it. Then the arrogant guy began to blackmail the captain, because a couple of days ago, his father said that he needed help. The instructor just looked at him with a distant gaze and thought about what he should do next. Suddenly, the man remembered something that he forgot to remind the recruits. Luo Zheng's life here is not easy, so he can't let them bother him at night. Meanwhile, Song Yan was thinking about the fact that the captain is already head over heels in troubled waters, and yet he pretends to be absolutely clean. Such people are not needed in their family. Behind, one of the soldiers shouted to the impudent soldier if he had dinner, because in the evening they would have exercises with combat ammunition. This fact pleased the scoundrel even more, and he was already thinking about what to do next. At the same time, the heroes proved to one of the instructors that the main instructor had given him consent that he could already use the equipment. The man reacted negatively to this, and repeated that he would not give him any more ammo, and all equipment would be distributed equally. He needed to stop thinking that because of his connections he would receive special treatment. Meanwhile, Song Yen was approaching, thinking that the matter was only between him and Luo Zhang, and they would solve it slowly and carefully. It was late evening and the hero also arrived for military training. All the soldiers were outraged that Luo Zhang was also here. As it turned out, he decided on their dinner, because the instructor did not keep his promise, so he had no choice. The captain was outraged that his subordinates had not prepared food. He said that he was disorganized and undisciplined, and his brothers in arms could now die of hunger. Then the guy shouted that the instructor should not turn everyone against him, and he should know perfectly well the reason why he could not cook dinner. Meanwhile, Song Yen approached, who said that the hero speaks rudely to his instructor and expresses disrespect for his superiors. This makes him doubly guilty. The brave warrior only looked into the eyes of the scoundrel and asked him not to let his tail fly, because they had not yet settled their common affairs, and there was no point in fighting such a loser a second time. The soldier hiding behind the captain was even more outraged by this, and he exclaimed for Luo Zhang to come to him, and repeated what he said. With a grin, the hero watched the scoundrel hide behind his superior, and called him a rooster. Unable to stand it, the captain began to shout at both of them to shut up, because it looked like the hero wanted to give up his training. He explained that it was only because the captain was forcing him to quit training. They hadn't even given him any equipment to practice with. Staying here was a waste of time, and he wanted to see if the captain would dare to expel him. Earlier, he explained to the captain that if he wanted Luo Zhang to cook 3 meals, then he needed to be provided with training and equipment. Otherwise, he will have to return to the military district and report his experience here. To be honest, he doesn't really care whether he trains or not. All the soldiers now knew that Luo Zhang had come here under the orders of the military region, and this guy really had an ironclad alibi. Even Song Yang was shocked that Luo Zhang was able to establish connections in the military region. Pretend that the captain doesn't understand anything. He asked who told him that there was no ammunition for him. What kind of ridiculous claim was this? And he also said that today the practice of firing blanks, exercises with combat ammunition will only be in 3 days, then they will give out ammunition to everyone. Because of this, he left his brothers hungry. At that moment Luo Zhang admitted that this looks like a misunderstanding, and this will not happen again. Turning around from the offending soldier, the captain said that this would not happen again, and then asked the soldiers why they stood there, asking them to disperse. All the soldiers discussed among themselves that the instructor did not dare to punish him, and this would be interesting. One of them was a young master of the Song family, and the other was under the influence of the military district. Meanwhile, events took place in the prestigious capital villa. Suddenly, someone knocked on Yurina Lanxiong's door, and she told the person who came that she was going to bed, and if they wanted to talk to her, they had to wait until tomorrow. The knocking on the door only intensified. As it turned out, it was the beloved younger sister, who came to visit the girl in person, and she still decided to open the door for her. The lady was very happy about the arrival of her sister, because they had not seen each other for a long time, and she affectionately called her the Snow Queen. The sisters were very similar, and one of them asked if the other had received all the information. Suddenly, the sister grabbed another sister by the hand. One of the sisters asked Yurina Lanxiong to wait, because she asked her to do something for her, so now she must follow the rules. And tonight she must sleep with her little sister. Events continued to take place in the Lan family home. The sister was outraged and asked the girl to speak to the point, or she would throw her out of the room. It was truly cruel to his beloved sister, and it is understandable why people call the cold-blooded beauty. Then the older sister decided to get out of bed to have a normal conversation. Yurine Lanxiong looked at her younger sister, and she admitted that she would not have helped if she had not been her sister. At the same time, Lady understood that if it were not for this Song family, then everything would be completely different. My sister thought that Yurina didn't want to get involved with their family, so that her dad would sell her, and it seems that she needs to enter their family after marriage and then just get rid of this Song. After such words, the sister could not stand it and threw a pillow at the younger one. And then she said menacingly, if she says this again, she will shut her mouth. After which, a serious conversation began. According to the information, that instructor was a soldier under Song Shibua, and her lovers once contacted Song Yen in the recruit camp. And then he took advantage of him. His only task was cooking, and he never participated in training. The older sister clearly didn't like this, and the younger sister began to make excuses because she didn't want to be to blame for this situation. As it turned out, once, her lover in front of everyone made the instructor speechless, and after that the instructor allowed him to participate in training with ammunition. He was clearly not one of those who could be easily dealt with. This made the girl very happy, who was still in love with Luo Zhang. Little sister immediately noticed that her older sister had fallen in love, and her heart, like an iceberg, began to melt. Such guesses outraged Irina Lan Xiong, and she thought that her younger sister was threatening her, because she had previously had a relationship with Luo Zhang. But this was not the case, and she wanted to talk about stupid Song Yen, who did not notice anything between them, and her lover knew nothing about her clashes with Song Yen. The documents from that mission have long been sealed, and they must have met by chance during training. The younger sister was even more intrigued, wondering what would happen next and how the confrontation between Song Yen and Luo Zhang would develop. And then the older sister asked her not to create problems, because the younger one had already learned a lot. After which, the little sister asked the younger one to go to her room, because it was already late, and she asked too many unnecessary questions. The offended little sister began to leave, and she was not happy that Irina Lan Xiong was driving her away. As soon as the younger sister left, the girl immediately thought that this would not work, and it was too dangerous for Luo Zhang to stay there. Then she took her phone and immediately started calling someone. She called her brother, who did not believe that they were calling him. It was her cousin, and she wanted to help him with training soldiers, because she just had such an opportunity, and she wanted to conduct training in a special training camp. Some time later, events continued in the training camp. The soldiers were almost at the finish line. The latter had to run another 10 kilometers with a load, because there is no place for the weak here. Meanwhile, some soldier was taking notes. He indicated that one of the tests was a 5-step slide, as well as a deep pit with a high wall. It was Luo Zhang, who was thinking that this 400-meter steeplechase training course was quite good, and he needed to hurry up with preparing dinner so that he could study here in the evening. Meanwhile, someone approached the commander's car and said something to him. It was Song Yang who asked the commander to help him because he wanted to blow off some steam. The commander was not against it, if only to let off steam, then this would not be a problem, but so that there would be no casualties. And then the scoundrel told the instructor not to worry, because he knew what he was doing. Smiling sarcastically, the scoundrel thought that it was time for him to study too, so they couldn't let anyone talk badly about him. Suddenly, one of the soldiers began to follow Mr. Song and turned to him. The soldier wanted to know what the instructor told him. It turned out that they were planning something tonight. The joyful soldier was in anticipation. He already wanted to receive further instructions as soon as possible. The scoundrel named Song Yen explained that they would get down to the most important thing, and he wouldn't even need any benefit. The selfless soldier was ready to help the scoundrel for nothing, and deal with the situation today. Night fell, and the 3 soldiers began to head somewhere, gradually approaching the building where they wanted to secretly enter. Having opened the door, they were horrified by what they saw, because they did not expect what would be behind the door. There was absolutely no one in the room. As it turned out, they didn't get through to one of the soldiers, but he was absent at night. The evil guy immediately exclaimed where Luo Zhang was, because he was not here. Suddenly, the 3 soldiers heard someone approaching them. They immediately decided to quickly hide so as not to be noticed or heard. Hiding behind various objects, the soldiers began to wait for the man who was heading into the building. It was the main character who jumped through the window of his room in order to get through and go to bed as soon as possible. He was glad that he was finally home, and after that the test with the wall, climbing through the windows seemed easier than ever. Unexpectedly, the soldiers grabbed Luo Zhang and began to throw him to the ground to do some terrible thing. They put a bag over his head so that he could not determine who actually attacked him then. Not understanding what to do, the hero began to suffer crushing blows, because the evil soldiers hit him from all sides. Taking wooden sticks in their hands, they hit the guy with all their might, sparing no effort. And then they actually started kicking him, as if they wanted to finish him off so that he would lose his life. Suddenly, Luo Zhang took the knife out of its sheath and began to use it for its intended purpose to attack his offenders. With the help of a sweeping movement of the knife, he was able to damage the leg of the insolent person who dared to attack him. The wounded soldier immediately began to leave, and the hero gradually took off the bag that was on his head. Noticing this, Song Yen hit the main character on the head with all his might, so that he could not declassify who actually attacked him. Due to the strong blow, the guy lost consciousness and remained lying on the floor for the whole night. Morning came, he continued to lie on the floor, because he was still unconscious from an incredibly strong blow. Some time later, the hero began to wake up, and experienced incredible pain because his head was pounding. Taking the bag off his head, he began to scream in pain, and then gradually looked around. Some time later, events continued to happen in the canteen in the morning, with all the soldiers eating at the buffet. Some of the soldiers were discussing among themselves that influential soldiers were beaten, and did not understand how they were beaten, because they have friends among the higher ranks. Meanwhile, the captain announced that management had appointed a new instructor and the meeting was to begin on the training field in 5 minutes. Surprised, the hero began to think that a new instructor had been sent to check on him and make sure that he was still alive. Literally a few seconds later, a girl entered the room and said that there was no need for this, and she could introduce herself here and now. The girl introduced herself as the new instructor and said that they could call her Thorn Rose. From that moment on, all the soldiers were amazed that the new instructor was a woman, and they had never heard of a special forces battalion being trained by a female instructor. Suddenly, Instructor Thorn Rose turned and looked at one of the soldiers. At first, Luo Zheng didn't understand why she was grinning, but then he realized that it was actually Yurine Lan Xiong. The new instructor then announced that the training would begin in 5 minutes at the main gate of the training ground. After 5 minutes, the commander introduced a new instructor, and this particular instructor was a shooting instructor. At the same time, the man did not understand what games the command was playing, because they suddenly appointed a new shooting instructor. Meanwhile, the soldiers ran to the new instructor, and one of the soldiers reported that Luo Zheng had arrived with them. Realizing that there were 33 recruits in this group, but there were only 32 here, and he was the only one who was absent, the girl asked why this happened. It was clear that the guy was immediately confused and didn't know what to answer her. But Thorn Rose didn't care about the reason for his absence, and she ordered 3 laps around the training field. The adamant hero saluted and said that he would do this order. Moving a little further, he thought that this girl looked very familiar. And he thought about what was possible, because this woman is also a sniper. Some time later, the hero reported that the run was over and he was awaiting further instructions, then the girl ordered him to get into formation to take a training position. Other soldiers were already doing their training and shooting with sniper rifles. Seeing the rifle, the hero immediately realized that it was a QB-88. Fortunately, Yurine Lan Xiong had previously taught him how to use it. Thorn Rose ordered all soldiers to reload their rifles and complete their preparations before firing. The masterful hero began to take aim through the optical sight, as if he had already shot from this sniper rifle more than once. Watching his foe, Song Yen also thought that he looked like he already knew how to use a rifle. Unfortunately, the hero could not focus on this position, the target was more than 600 m away and his instincts failed him again. Due to the instructor's orders, the soldiers still needed to fire the shot, and the results had to be assessed right away. The woman nevertheless decided to look at the results. The worst soldier of the Special Forces Battalion should have at least 85 points at this distance. Then she exclaimed that they were all trash, because the best result was only 80 points, and one of the soldiers had 0. The captain immediately wanted to know who shot at target number 11 and missed. As it turned out, it was Luo Zheng. At that moment, Lady wanted to know why he missed. His partners said that he is just a soldier who has friends above. He, in fact, does not know how to use a machine gun, but only knows how to cook. After listening to her partners, Thorn Rose wanted to know the opinion of the soldier himself. The hero explained that his partners are right, and he does not know how to shoot at a static target, but if it takes him with it on a hunt, he can shoot a couple of wild animals to improve the diet of everyone present. Such an initiative only made the woman happy, and she asked to do everything as he said. This gun will now be his, and he needs to prepare it himself. From now on he no longer needs to come to training. The captain also exclaimed to him to get out of here and take his weapon. The soldiers who were nearby did not like the outcome of the dispute, because the woman ultimately helped the hero. Some time later, Thorn Rose was standing by a tree, and Luo Zheng noticed it. The girl immediately realized that someone was approaching her, and learned from the steps that it was a hero, after which she asked him if he was going to the mountains. Due to the fact that the soldier had nagging doubts, he wanted to ask if Yurine's girl knew Lan Xiong. Suddenly, the lady exclaimed how he had not yet recognized her, and this was a great disappointment. The shocked soldier could not believe that this was Yurine Lan Xiong. She was wearing fake skin, made of silicone helium, and she went through so much trouble before her sister borrowed some of the stuff. The embarrassed couple could not believe that they had met again, because they thought that they would see each other only after 2 years. But suddenly, Yurine Lan Xiong herself removed her hands, and became even more embarrassed. The soldier didn't understand why she was hiding her identity and wanted to know if there was something here that she was afraid of. At that moment, the girl thought that he himself was under the close attention of the Song family, but he still thought that he could help her, and said that this would be enough, and it would be disadvantageous for him if anyone saw them together. The soldier only wanted Yurine Lan Xiong to stop teasing him, but he just needed to focus on his work and not worry about the rest. At the last moment, turning to the hero, the lady told him not to disappoint her, and then began to leave. A disappointed Luo Zhang watched as the love of his life left him without any explanation. Meanwhile, he thought that he would definitely not disappoint his beloved. At the same time, the captain wanted to know from Mr. Song what happened to the female instructor, because he wanted to know what exactly was going on. The scoundrel named Song Yen just lay quietly on the sofa and read a book, after which he replied that he had already sent someone to find out. The wary man explained that it seems that Luo Zhang has the protection of the military district, and he is afraid that this female instructor may have been appointed by the authorities. This would not reassure the guys at all, because he believed that she was only an instructor, and therefore unimportant. The most important thing now is to find a way to make Luo Zhang disappear from the training team, the scoundrel said. The fearful man wanted to know what it meant to disappear. The smart guy just smiled at this and did not want to answer the question right away. The instructor continued to demand an answer, because he believed that Mr. Song had gone too far, and if he had something to say, then he should just say it. At that moment, the guy didn't ask if Luo Zhang was hunting in the mountains. And then he said that he would have to disturb the instructor to keep an eye on the trail. The alarmed instructor immediately guessed that the impudent Song Yen wanted to finish off Luo Zhang in the forest. After all, being alone in the mountains is not very safe. Events continue to take place on the hills at night. The hero finished training 8 minutes earlier than yesterday. It was already late, and he had to return to camp. Some noise was heard in the middle of the forest, and birds began to rise into the sky. The guy immediately realized that something was wrong here. Hiding behind a stone, he began to examine the area and what exactly was happening around. Suddenly, with horror, he discovered something amazing, and immediately began looking for a sniper rifle to protect himself. Someone incredibly fast began to move through the trees, and the hero was amazed that this guy was at least twice as fast as him, and did not know who it could be. The stunned guy immediately guessed that this scoundrel was inspecting the camp, and that it was the enemy. The enemy soldier almost noticed Luo Zhang, but he continued to hide behind a rock, taking a sniper rifle with him. He did everything possible to remain unnoticed, and wanted to eliminate the enemy with all his might. The enemy was gradually approaching, and was already incredibly close to the hero. But then, the enemy soldiers shouted for the guy to come out, because he saw him. Stunned, Luo Zhang began to look around, and realized that there were several enemies here. Looking through the optical sight, he saw a terrifying thing that he could not have foreseen. In his sight, allies were visible who for some reason were running through the forest with knives. Song Yen started screaming to float out, because if he is a real man, then it is worth coming here and fighting him if he has the courage. The man who was hiding said that he did not think that he would be discovered. It seems that he underestimated the soldiers that were at this military base. At the same time, the hero watched everything that was happening, and thought that his allies were trying to finish him off. Seeing another soldier, Song Yen didn't know what to say, and only asked who the man was. The seasoned soldier only replied that he was the one who was going to take their lives. After this, he immediately rushed to the attack in order to eliminate the soldiers who noticed him. The allied soldiers tried with knives to eliminate the villain who had sneaked into the forest and was trying to track down the military base. But the experienced man, with only a slight movement of his hand, neutralized the 2 soldiers, after which he began to head towards Song Yen. With every second he was getting closer and closer, and was ready to strike back, which would neutralize the villain. The blow caught the insolent soldier, and he began to scream in pain. The incredibly powerful blow literally knocked out the last strength from him. Meanwhile, The man thought that a special training camp could not have such weak soldiers that they were training there, but suddenly a shot was fired. The experienced soldier immediately dodged him, and by some miracle he was able to avoid being hit in the head. Seeing this, the hero could not believe his eyes. After all, this man dodged a bullet, and ordinary soldiers cannot do that. The unknown man disappeared and was no longer visible and was no longer in Luo Zhang's line of sight. At the same time, the guy felt that the enemy had not left, and he still felt that he was being watched. The enemy shouted from the bushes that he did not expect to meet such a calm sniper, and next time they would definitely fight. Unexpectedly, the hero had a feeling of calm, and he felt that the enemy had left. Meanwhile the instructor along with other soldiers were already approaching the wounded guys. Thorn Rose saw one of the impudent soldiers lying on the ground and was wounded, and then she thought that this was what he needed, he deserved it. The captain exclaimed that the wounded soldiers should be immediately taken to the infirmary. Fearing the consequences, the captain wanted to know who did it and whether they would dare to attack their training camp, but at the same time thought that if Song Yang did it, then his career would be over. The female instructor immediately began looking for clues, and the captain anxiously wondered if she had found anything. Suddenly, the lady discovered something, and realized that she needed to act. Then she said that the enemy is very strong, so there is no point in keeping only people here, and she will stay here to investigate, and the captain will go and take the army back. This incident must be reported as soon as possible. The man involved in the crime thought that this woman's strength is unmeasurable. Even if she says that this is a strong enemy, then he should probably keep it a secret. Then the captain ordered all the soldiers to collect the wounded in order to retreat. The soldiers immediately began to leave after the commander's order, and the girl seemed to be expecting something. Yurin Lan Xiong exclaimed for him to come out, because there was no one else here. The soldier immediately guessed that he could not hide from her. The girl just wanted to know what exactly happened here. And then, he revealed that this time he had to thank that coward Song Yen, and was going to tell the whole story. After discovering the enemy soldier's reconnaissance position, the girl realized that this was definitely the best place to inspect the camp. According to what Luo Zheng said, Song Yen wanted to force him to give himself away. But he never thought that he would bring another person to him, and his injury is quite serious. He will not be in a condition to bother the hero for some time. Song Yen and the others are just getting paid for what they did, and they deserve it, to be beaten. However, the guy also thought that the mission of the man dressed in black was interrupted, and he was too confident in his abilities. The lady, meanwhile, thought that perhaps the enemy would return when he saw that the troops had retreated. After thinking about what was happening, she decided to ask the hero what he thought about this incident. He explained that this person does not know that there is someone as strong as her here. Together they realized that they could ambush the enemy. After 20 minutes, there was still no enemy, and perhaps the hero thought that his guess was wrong. While scanning the forest with a telescopic sight, he suddenly spotted the enemy approaching a position to inspect an allied military camp. The alarmed guy quietly exclaimed that the enemy was here and was already ready to shoot at him. A secretive soldier made his way to an inspection position in order to spy on enemy positions. At the same time, the hero was worried. Could it be that he accidentally revealed his position, and the enemy sensed him from such a distance? Suddenly a shot rang out, and Luo Zheng immediately guessed that it was Yurin Lan Xiong. With a truly targeted shot, she was able to hit him right in the head, thereby harming the enemy literally with one shot. Amazed even more, he understood that the girl was able to destroy such a powerful new enemy with one blow. She was so strong, and he did not understand whether he would be able to surpass her in the future. Examining the scoundrel's body, the lady wanted to understand what he had with him and why exactly he was here. Meanwhile the hero came closer and asked if she had found anything and could tell where he came from. After looking at the body, they did not find a tattoo on his chest. This was a sign of the army of wild wolves, and as it turned out, they were following Luo Zheng. He couldn't believe what he heard, because he had no idea that he was attracting so much trouble. Wolves are the animals that Bear is angry with, and they killed their people, so they are definitely here to take revenge. Fortunately, the hero himself was not afraid of wild wolves, but still this is quite strange. After all, he didn't understand how they could know that he was here. This must be a high-level secret. Looking confidently at the guy, the girl said that she would sort it out, and he could be calm. No one would be able to touch him while she was here. The guy felt uneasy, but he was very glad that she was protecting him, but it seemed strange to him that he, as a man and a soldier, had to hide behind the girl's back. Yurina Lan Xiong only said that today he slept with 3 people, and she will make this incident public. The instructor will have to admit his actions. He will also ask that someone else be put in charge of the kitchen so he can just focus on training. In any case, she was already leaving. It would be difficult to explain that anyone would be able to see them together. Unfortunately, the hero was still far from her level to fulfill the 2-year promise, and must monitor every change to his body that he receives. Turning around and looking at Luo Zhang, the lady didn't understand what kind of strange expression he had on his face. Perhaps it was a man's self-esteem. Some time later, events continued to occur at the waterfall. The courageous hero continued his training at night, and thought about the fact that he only had 2 years left. During all these 2 years, he madly wanted to become stronger, much stronger than before. Morning came, and the guy was completely exhausted. He really wanted to sleep, and tried to get to the camp. With his eyes closing from fatigue, he saw the girl in front of him. Unfortunately, he still fell to the ground, and was already unconscious, because fatigue overcame him. After some time, he found himself in the hospital, or lying in a hospital bed. The doctor said that the guy was just tired. At the moment, he will be fine after rest, but his life will be in danger if he continues to train. Then the instructors decided to make him stay here for a little longer, after which she thanked the doctor for his concern. This was not a problem, because the doctor needed to take care of other patients anyway. After some time, Lady decided to write to her younger sister, because she wanted to ask her for help in dealing with this. She wanted to find out why the army of wild wolves reached the training camp. But the sister did not react to this question. She was more interested in how her relationship with Luo Zhang was. She was not at a loss and continued to call people who could potentially help. Deciding to call her cousin, she asked him to tell her, because she didn't remember something, but there hadn't been a single highly qualified sniper in the special forces for about 5 years. Then the cousin wanted to know what the girl meant. As it turned out, there was nothing special about it. She just found a man with great potential, and did not want his talent to go to waste. Hearing this, the cousin said that he himself would come and take a look, and then he asked if anything had happened to his sister. Ask her not to worry. He said that if anything would cover her. At that moment, the girl decided that while she was here, she would ensure the safety of the main character. Meanwhile, someone was watching everything that was happening all this time. It was Song Yen, who realized that Yurina Lan Xiong was in cahoots with him. He even hired wild wolves, but the hero still did not die. Now he wanted to see if they were lucky a second time. A few hours later, the hero finally woke up and wanted to find out why he was here. The doctors immediately stopped him, because they didn't want him to get up. He still needed to lie down, because they needed to check his pulse and other indicators of his condition. The doctor could not believe his eyes, because as soon as the instructor brought him the patient was barely alive. Laughing at this, the hero told him that he always quickly came to his senses, even when he was young. At the same time, he thought that it was good that he had such a breathing technique, but the girl still saw how he lost consciousness after training. Relieved that he was now okay, the doctor told him that the patient could go, but he should get a good rest before training. Instructor Thorn Rose left his weapon here and asked him not to forget that he take it with him, and also wanted to convey something else. Namely, when he wakes up to find her today in the room where she lives. Events continued to occur that same night in Thorn Rose's room. Evening came, and the hero decided to knock on the door of his instructor. As soon as he saw her, he was immediately confused, but she ordered him to come in. She learned that he wanted to quickly improve his skills, which is why they should make his training plan together. The embarrassed guy wanted to know if the girl called him here just to create a training plan. This question shocked the lady, and she wanted to know why else she could call him to her room. Some time later, the training continued, and the hero was shooting at targets. Using precision shots from a sniper rifle at a target, he was able to fire 10 shots and score 80 points. This result did not suit Luo Zhang at all, and he wanted to get much more points. The confused guy said that he wants to do other training, and there is no need to worry, because he promises to score 90 points in a maximum of 10 days. At the same time, Lady understood that this guy scored 80 points on a 1,000-meter target, which is enough to get into the special forces. And before this guy protects her, she must protect him first. The hard training continued and tried. Today he could call it a good day, because he had a little rest before heading back. Continuing to meditate, he thought about the need to hold on, although the atmosphere here was somehow tense. And it was not in vain, because some soldier pointed a pistol right at the hero's head and was about to shoot. The stunned guy wanted to find out who he was. I told him that his comrades were nearby. An experienced soldier said that delaying tactics were useless in this case, because he was exploring the surroundings with his companion, and there was not a single person nearby, so nobody could save him. The hero did not understand how it was possible that there were two people present here, because he did not feel the other. The enemy soldier, in turn, ordered to answer as he asked, and then the guy would receive a painless death. Feeling afraid, the guy asked what the enemy soldier wanted to know from him. Suddenly, the scoundrel asked where Luo Zheng was. This paralyzed the hero even more. He did not know at all how to react to this. Due to the fact that the soldier did not hear the answer, he was going to kill him. Suddenly, an unexpected shot followed, and someone was about to finish off the scoundrel that attacked. Then Luo Zheng realized that he had a chance to escape from here. He quickly began to run away from the place where he was previously. Running away from a large number of bullets, he tried to hide behind a stone, and thought that the enemy soldier no longer had a companion, which means that someone saved him. This means that it was Yurina Lan Xiong who shouted to Luo Zheng that she was here. Taking a sniper rifle with her, Thorn Rose wanted to find out if the army of wild wolves attacked him, and it was indeed the case. She follows him and thinks that he is one of them. Fortunately, Lady guessed that the wild wolves would not give up, so she hid next to him all the time. Hearing this, the hero realized that Yurina Lan Xiong had been protecting him all this time while he was training. Unfortunately, this time it will probably be more difficult, because the soldier was able to dodge her shot. Such a soldier will retreat so easily. The heroes also noticed that he said that he was looking for Luo Zheng, but he doesn't know who it is, he only knows the name itself. And that he is in training camp. Events continued to occur in the training camp. The people who stood on the tower were deprived of their lives, because they were finished off by the same soldier. Arriving at the camp, they found an enemy soldier running around with a machine gun and killing everyone in his path. I shoot at him. Unfortunately, the girl did not hit, because the scoundrel dodged the bullets again. Having realized that this soldier was more experienced than the wolf soldiers, the girl immediately realized that it was Silver Claw. The owner of Silver Claw is called Blood Wolf, and he is one of the founders of the Wild Wolf Army. He is also one of the top 10 snipers in the world, a real beast. Realizing all this, Luo Zheng wanted to save his brothers, because he understood that they were in danger, but there was not enough shelter ahead, and it was too dangerous to go there. There was a need to find a place to hide, and the lady was trying to get through and tell everyone to stay inside. She began to make her way through obstacles in the training camp. While dodging enemy shots, she broke the window into the room where the soldiers were located to warn them. The captain and other soldiers were shocked by what was happening, but fortunately they saw a girl who came to their aid. The soldiers and the captain immediately wanted to know from Thorn Rose what the situation was outside. It was an enemy attack, from a very strong enemy, and everyone needs to stay in the barracks and not go anywhere. Due to the fact that the enemy is an expert, it is necessary to first get to the very high viewpoint. Due to the need for a larger field of view, the girl began to run to the roof of one of the buildings, but she was already in the enemy's sights. The enemy continuously continued to shoot at the lady, and thereby almost hit her with a sniper rifle. Meanwhile, the hero discovered the Norm Fox, and realized that this was a good place for an ambush, after which he began to head inside it. From the ambush he saw the rogue enemy shooting at Thorn Rose and realized he needed to act. The guy also realized that he had to find out the location of another enemy ally. In a sniper duel, both sides must act quickly and quietly. Especially when facing such a powerful enemy, you need to be sure to notice every variable. Using their senses, the heroes discovered the enemy, who was in hiding. Suddenly, he discovered that the enemy was coming straight at him, because he wanted to take the same position as him. The air around him was not the same as the second guy, so it was the second enemy. The not-so-experienced soldier decided to fire a shot in order to finish off the scoundrel and neutralize him. The bullet hit the enemy directly, but he managed to run behind cover, which was right next to him. Seeing this, the hero could not believe his eyes, because even such a shot did not kill him. Immediately, many shots were aimed at Luo Zheng himself, because the last shot determined his position with only one shot. This scoundrel is truly worthy of being the disciple of the Blood Wolf. Suddenly, the hero felt that something was happening in the camp. These were all the soldiers who remained alive. They were in full equipment and with weapons, and were ready to fight. The captain ordered 3 people in a group to line up and carefully explore the camp and valley. Seeing his beloved, the hero was glad that everything was fine with her and she was alive. Coming closer to the hero, the girl asked if he was okay. Suddenly, she saw an enemy machine gun lying on the floor. All the soldiers immediately realized that Luo Zheng had shot one of the enemies. Looking at him, Yurin Lan Xiong immediately realized that he lived up to her expectations. The captain was pleased with the soldiers' work. After all, if the scoundrel got to the ambush site, they would be in danger, and he did not expect that Luo Zheng would be here, and he was not afraid and knew exactly when to shoot. The guy explained that he just hid there and waited for the right moment. The lady shouted for the captain to report everything that was happening as soon as possible, and then asked Luo Zheng to go with her. She said that she did not expect that they would pursue such a nonentity like him so persistently. The hero did not understand who exactly she meant. Either way, it's not safe for them to stay here anymore. The guy wanted to explain that the military district ordered him to come here, and he was afraid that he might not follow their orders, but the girl explained that he should not worry, and she would be able to solve this problem. All this time, they were watched by Song Yen, who was indignant at what had happened. This guy clearly wasn't going to give up his revenge. The damn army of wild wolves sent him idiots who couldn't cope with the task. Events continued to occur at the training ground the next day. The captain ordered the soldiers to raise their morale, because he would not allow losers to stay here. Suddenly, an armored military vehicle began to drive up, and the captain immediately looked back. An unknown man immediately began to get out of the car and approached the instructor. As it turned out, it was their commander, to whom the captain immediately saluted. The man saw that the captain had not yet been informed of his arrival, and he interrupted the training. The alarmed captain explained that this was not the case, and he simply did not know what further instructions the commander would have. When he saw his sister, he realized that she had disguised herself, as if she was planning something. The commander said that the current situation is this: there is an acute shortage of snipers in the special forces. Since he has some free time, he would like to see if there are good snipers here. The stunned man could not believe that this was really happening, and the commander was looking for snipers at the point. And he said that it was the duty of the training camp to prepare fresh, young soldiers for the Army's special forces. This was indeed well said. Since the commander's time was limited, he asked the captain to ask Thorn Rose. This is the sniper trainer he assigned here. Hearing this, the captain couldn't believe it because he didn't expect her to serve under a commander. Then the man ordered Thorn Rose to select 10 people and give them 1 magazine of ammunition per person, set up 10 targets right here and order them to shoot at the targets at the same time. If there are talented soldiers, the commander will immediately take them with him. The captain agreed without question, after which he said that he would now call all the soldiers. Events continued to take place at the training ground. All the soldiers gathered and lined up. The instructor reported that the training was successfully completed. The commander hesitated and asked in a whisper which soldier should pass the test, but then said that it was necessary to begin, so as not to waste time. All the soldiers held sniper rifles in their hands and were ready to conduct aimed fire. Using his skills, the hero successfully made aimed shots exactly at the target. When conducting aimed fire, he was able to make several very successful shots that hit right in the middle of the target. The hero reported that he had successfully completed the shooting, and Song Yen at the same time did not understand what game this guy was playing again, and why he shot so quickly. The commander assumed that this shooter was very fast because he was too nervous to hit the target. Then Thorn Rose stood up for him and said that later they would find out how well he had done it. A good soldier is one who speaks with confidence, and the man hoped that he would not be let down. The captain reported that all the soldiers had finished shooting at targets. All the soldiers lined up to report the results to everyone. After seeing the results, the captain said that all the soldiers had 60 or 70 points. Is there really no one with a decent result? And then the captain asked who was on target number 6, after which he ordered him to get out of formation. It was Luo Zheng, who immediately broke down and said that it was him. The result amazed the girl, because she saw how accurate the shots were. The target was hit exactly in the middle, and the hero received the most points. The commander knew that he was not bad, and in addition, the results were capable of competing with special forces, with more than 3 years of combat training experience, and this guy truly has incredible potential. Keeping his promise, the captain told the soldier to pack his things and they set off. All the soldiers were stunned by what was happening, and only the hero understood what was happening here. He revealed that even the commander of the military district of special forces came in person, due to the influence of Yurine Lan Xiong. The worried captain tried to persuade the commander to test other soldiers and decide to select them more carefully. The angry man turned to him and said that he did not need the permission of others, and he would decide who to choose. Not expecting such an answer, the captain said that he would not interfere in this anymore. Getting even more angry, the commander asked not to talk nonsense, and to better think about training. He also had several questions for Thorn Rose, so she would also go with them. After a second, the commander turned to look at the troops. The rest of the soldiers also wanted to join the special forces, but due to their poor skills, they were unable to do so. Therefore, if his training is as bad, then the captain will have to be replaced. The excited man shouted and saluted that he would never disappoint his commander. After which, the commander ordered Luo Zheng to follow him. They headed into an armored car and then prepared to leave. All this time, Song Yan was watching everything that was happening, and was the most angry. At the same time, Song Yan didn't say anything to the commander, and asked him not to worry, because he himself understood the problem. If he didn't need anything else, then he was going to leave. The captain understood that everything would not be so simple, and he had some doubts about this guy's reaction. Song Yan sometime later, he became even more angry, because he understood that Yurine Lan Xiong even used the commander to take her boyfriend away from here. This is very good, because this trick against the Song family will not be forgotten. Meanwhile, the commander, a sniper and an instructor were traveling in an armored car. The man wanted to know the name of the hero who would become the new sniper. Hearing his voice, he said that he was adamant and confident. This speaks of his ability to become a soldier. This answer really encouraged the guy, and he expected a lot from the service. Then the commander asked the soldier if he knew where he was being taken, but the guy had no idea. The concerned man again asked if the soldier knew what he wanted from him. The guy again answered that no. Hearing this answer, the commander asked if he was afraid that the man would do some kind of fraud with him. In a confident voice, the hero replied that he had no right to doubt the commander. The whole situation only made the lady laugh, because she knew what it really was. And she asked the commander to stop teasing the soldier, and Lu Cheng is her cousin, he is one of them. Luo Zheng was stunned by what he heard. He could not believe that the commander was her cousin. And Lu Cheng himself couldn't believe that this guy was one of them. Returning to the girl, the commander asked if it was really worth it, because it took him a lot of effort to carry out such an operation. The girl began to take off her wig, and said that now he was her soldier, and wanted to know what he thought about him. At that moment, Lu Cheng said that Yurine Lan Xiong had kept her promise, and in a year he should win for them first place in the sniper category of the National Special Forces competition. In a confident voice, the guy again replied that he agreed with such conditions and would not let any of them down. Again he saw the girl next to him laughing. The commander only replied that it is good to be young. The embarrassed lady asked, "Since when did my cousin learn to joke as well as he does now?" The man just laughed and said that he wouldn't talk like that again. The embarrassed and blushing guy now did not know what would happen to him in the future. Events continued to occur at the Special Forces building. An armored vehicle pulled up and they had to head into the building. The lady asked her cousin to go ahead, and she was going to give the soldier some more instructions. Finally, the man asked Luo Zheng to come to his office. It's in the second building, the last room on the left side. The commander began to get out of the car. All the soldiers immediately saluted him. Only the two of them remained in the car. The girl asked if he blamed her for bringing him here without permission. But that was not the case. She did it for his own benefit, and he is generally useless, since he always relies only on her protection. Covering the hero's mouth, Yurine Lan Xiong ordered him not to speak like that anymore. The embarrassed guy again said that he needed to go, because the commander was waiting for him, after which he got out of the armored vehicle and closed the door. Or she didn't know that he was starting to doubt, but now she can't say what's really going on here, and he just has to remember the promise, and she'll take care of the rest herself. Turning to the girl, the guy promised that he would never forget the promise he made earlier. She literally begged him to concentrate on training and not flirt with other girls, otherwise she would never forgive him for it. He never expected that the girl he liked would tell him this, and he agreed with her. As if nothing had happened, the satisfied lady ordered the soldier to leave. Realizing that he had 1 year left, he planned to focus on training and achieve first place among Special Forces snipers. The commander was waiting for him. First of all he should go to him. But he had a feeling as if he was being watched, although it was only a split second, perhaps he imagined it. Now it didn't matter, and he was probably just worried, because Luo Zhang entered the Special Forces headquarters. Meanwhile, someone was really watching the hero. Some men were sitting in the bushes. One of them was extremely surprised that he remained noticed, and considered this guy to be really very smart. Events continue to happen 3 months later. The captain was forming up the Special Forces and wanted to announce something to them. He also said that now they can take the position freely, and they must be instructed by the commander. The man was going to save them from parting speeches so that they would become worthy Special Forces soldiers. All this today depends only on their performance. Immediately after this, he said that they should begin testing now. Suddenly, a large group of soldiers began to approach the recruits, who had not expected this. The first stage was single combat. Everyone must choose an opponent. The one who remains on his feet for 2 minutes will advance further. The test began, and the first soldier successfully flew out because he did not last 2 minutes. Some soldiers were still able to resist, and gradually passed the tests. Each of them tried to show themselves as strongly as possible during training in order to remain safe and sound, but not everyone succeeded. The entire group of soldiers were amazed at how crazy this task was. The game was too hard for them. Luo Zhang should be next. He should break ranks and choose his opponent. In front of him were many soldiers who were pumped up and very strong. He must choose any of them. The brave guy said that any opponent will do, and he is ready to fight with each of them. The experienced soldiers could not believe that they had encountered such an arrogant enemy, and everyone wanted to teach him a lesson. Then a commander named Lu Cheng ordered Shan Hu to come forward. The big soldier came forward and was ready to fight with the newcomer, who seemed to know nothing. The guy was looking forward to this fight, and knew that it would be incredibly difficult. Then the commander said that if the soldier stood for 2 minutes, he would immediately be able to join his elite team. The other soldiers couldn't believe it, because he had the honor of fighting with Shan Hu. This is the best fighter. Even if he is good at recruiting, this does not mean that he will be the best in shooting. Experienced fighters also knew that the commander had his own reasons for this, and this guy probably had incredible talent. The arrogant big man looked at the hero with an arrogant look and thought that he couldn't defeat him here, so he immediately told him to give up. Meanwhile, the commander announced that they were starting a fight. Gathering all his courage, the hero was ready to fight with the hefty soldier and confront him in battle. Then the big man ordered him to go first and attack. Luo Zheng apologized in advance to the huge soldier, and began to carry out his attack. His movements were extremely sharp and concentrated. With the help of his agility he jumped to a great height, and wanted to make an airstrike. The experienced soldier thought this was a really good move. But not so good, because the big guy was able to counter the hero's attack with a counterattack. All the soldiers saw that he was trying to do a feint knee strike, but unfortunately he had no luck. Now he will feel how the good old brute force covers all his skills. The confrontation continued, and Luo Zheng grabbed the big man's leg to counter his blow. Having dodged in time, he was easily able to dodge the strike of the elite soldier, and he jumped back. The confrontation continued. All the newcomers were amazed at how experienced and strong Luo Zheng was. Due to the enormous mass of his body, the soldier could throw the hero several meters to the side only by hitting him with a push. Suddenly, the healthy man noticed that his center of gravity had shifted, and he was gradually beginning to fall. Then the hero used a sweep to knock down the old man's legs, and he fell to the floor. After which, he additionally performed a counter-attack, and with the help of his leg, he hit the huge guy right on the head. The unshakable and strong soldier was still standing on his feet, as if nothing had happened. The big man ordered the hero to attack, but also understood that his skills were very good. Suddenly, someone said that time is up. The fighters of the elite unit did not expect this from an ordinary rookie who fought with their strongest fighter. The commander was also amazed by the hero's skills and praised him, after which he said that he was passing. Sighing with relief, the hero waited for the commander to tell him, and he said that he was declaring Luo Zheng the winner of the competition, and the testing was successfully passed. Now he officially joins the elite special team. The rookies and the elite unit couldn't believe their eyes. They had never seen a recruit being sent to an elite special forces team. Even the toughest fighter turned around to tell the guy that he was actually pretty good. And Luo Zheng himself believed that the strongest fighter was very generous, and he was lucky with him that he only had 2 minutes to fight with him. Some time later, the commander called someone. He told his sister that things were very bad. That gifted guy whom she noticed during testing, arrogantly challenged Shan Hu, the best fighter, to a fight, and now he has broken legs, and the commander was afraid that he would no longer be a soldier in this life for sure. Meanwhile, Luo Zheng approached the commander, and noticed that he was calling someone. Having not heard an answer, Lu Cheng asked his sister to answer at least something, because he believed that his words had shocked his sister. Yurina Lan Xiong said that her brother was a worthless liar, and she did not believe his words. The captain admitted that he really was lying, and the guy only passed the qualifying tests to get into the elite league. The girl declassified him because he paused every sentence and said that Luo Zheng was arrogant. After training for so long, he would not lose to this Shan Hu whom he trained. Lu Cheng admitted that he was wrong, and just for the record, this guy passed the tests and joined the elite special forces, and was not going to waste any more time, because he is a special forces commander, and he still has a lot of unresolved matters. This situation truly made the hero laugh. The commander noticed this, after which he ordered him not to laugh, and to quickly get into formation. The brave and courageous hero immediately listened to him, saluted, and headed to the formation. Events continued to occur 3 months later. Luo Zheng found a friend with whom he talked all the time, and his friend asked him when he would be as good as the hero in competitions. The hero reassured him, saying that he would also train him and teach him various techniques. Suddenly, another group of soldiers approached, and they were looking for Luo Zheng and his comrade with all their might. As it turns out, they are supposed to be assigned a mission, and they will finally spend time together. It was surprising, although they did not yet know which of the 9 teams would be sent on this mission. The Alpha Sniper team immediately flies off due to injury. If not for this, they would not have had any chance. The captain approached and told Luo Zheng that the commander was calling him. Events continued at the commander's office. The hero knocked on his door. Outside the door, he heard the captain praising him and saying that his training results were very good, but he was only a rookie who had not yet seen real battles, and they could not give him the sniper position. The guy immediately realized that they were talking about him, and Shan Hu does not want him to team up with the first team for the mission. This is normal, because he still needs to improve his language and prepare for the big wrestling competition. Suddenly, the captain shouted for Lu Cheng to come in, and he shouldn't eavesdrop on such conversations. And so the hero approached the commander's office to find out what was the matter. The man said that he would have an important mission that they would send Alpha Team to handle, but they didn't have a sniper right now, so he would like Luo Zheng to take his place. But the leader of the group is against it. How can he bear the name of a mountain tiger? The commander thought that his brains could not compare, even with a mountain cat, no, not even a domestic one. Reacting instantly, the guy asked the commander not to worry. After all, he had already said that the sniper needed a confident replacement. Captain Shan Hu did not know that his main advantage was shooting, and now this is a very important mission. Angry, the commander ordered him not to talk nonsense and asked if he agreed. The faithful and devoted hero saluted and told the commander that he was ready for service and was waiting for new assignments. Events continued some time later. The entire Alpha team was assembled. One of the soldiers was amazed that the captain said that Luo Zheng would replace the sniper. They did not trust the newcomer, because if the captain spoke about his shooting skills, the soldiers completely disagreed. The captain started shouting at them and said that stop talking, because this is an order. The hero himself thought that on the battlefield it was a matter of life and death, and his brothers must believe in him. With a confident look, the captain looked at Luo Zheng and asked if he really wanted to show off his skills. The elite soldiers really did not believe that he was capable of this, and asked him to show what he was capable of. For the hero, this was not a problem, and he was going to hit that signal flag that was located on a hill very far away. Taking aim with the help of an optical sight, he began to aim at his target. The commander looked through binoculars and began to direct his shot, saying that the distance was approximately 800 m. The confident hero only asked not to worry, because he was true to his words. But if now he misses this target, he will definitely leave here. Without touching the trigger, he aimed in order to make an accurate shot. All the soldiers closely watched every action the sniper made. And finally, Luo Zheng made a aimed shot, which was supposed to decide what would happen to him next. Using all his skills, he was easily able to hit the flag, which was located 800 meters away from them. Each of the soldiers was amazed by the hero's skills and abilities. Then the guy smiled and asked his partners with a smile if they were satisfied with his skills. The captain praised the hero and said that this cannot be, because such skills are comparable to those of the mentor of their army, the king of snipers. All the soldiers were pleased with their brother-in-law, and wanted to know why he hid his skills, because it really was an ace in the hole. The platoon commander himself was impressed with Luo Zheng's skills. It was truly impressive, and they said that he was now accepted into the ranks of the Alpha Special Forces. Confidently and decisively, the hero said that he accepted this invitation, and so they decided to introduce themselves officially. The team captain, Hai Shan, known as Shan Hu, was the leader of the Alpha Squad. His determination, wisdom and ability to make quick and correct decisions made him an authoritative leader. He was the one who gave direction to the team, inspired his comrades in arms and ensured consistency of action in the most difficult situations. Huang Lei, known as Lei Gong, was a skilled demolitionist. His specialization in handling explosives and his ability to set traps made him an integral member of the team. He was an expert in creating traps, destroying devices and disarming explosives. In his hands explosives became a tool that used tactfully and effectively in solving various problems on the battlefield. Jin Xian, also known by the code name Jin Jiao, was a skilled intelligence officer. His courage, dexterity and skill in intelligence gathering made him a valuable asset to his team. His ability to remain undetected and quickly adapt to different environments helped him carry out intelligence missions with high efficiency and perfection. Zhang Bao, also known by his codename Shang Bao, was a skilled stormtrooper. His courage, dedication and skill in combat made him a valuable member of the team. He was able to act quickly in battle conditions, showing great determination and ability to effectively handle tasks related to assault and defense. An important part of the team, Zhang Bao was often the one who took on difficult tasks and performed them with distinction. Fists crossed, they all shouted together that they were Team Alpha. Now they are like brothers who were ready to go through any difficulties that would arise on their way and fight to the last. Some time later, events continued to occur in the Alpha Squad barracks. Everyone had to familiarize themselves with the plan of their secret operation. Armed bandits, under Kyung Tai, are trying to bring illegal substances across the border. About 100 heavily armed men will defend this party, and they are skilled and have a keen understanding of their surroundings. Their mission is to suppress the enemy's fighting ability and leave the smuggling of illegal substances, 5 of them against hundreds of enemies, which is why they need to study the plan, because failure is not an option. Each of them will receive a standard set of equipment. The rest of the equipment will be delivered in the usual way. The commander also asked Luo Zheng what model of sniper rifle he needed and how many cartridges he needed, because he was going to prepare it. Luo Zheng confidently said that he needed a CSLR-4 rifle and 200 standard cartridges, and also 100 high-explosive anti-tank charges with the same number of fuses. Such a request surprised the commander, but he was ready to fulfill any requirement of such a high-class sniper. Events continued to occur the next day. The Special Forces team flew onto the battlefield, fully equipped with the best equipment they could get. The commander said that making a will was their tradition before a battle, and his comrades had already written theirs. The hero was at a loss at that moment, because he did not understand what to write to him. One of the soldiers said that these wills were some kind of nonsense, and it was all very old-fashioned. This really surprised the guy, because he did not expect to hear this from one of the soldiers. They all began to crumple up their wills and throw them away, and after that they asked the commander to prepare delicious food upon his return and throw a party in honor of the triumph. At the same time, the guy himself understood that, after all, he was taking part in such a serious operation, and they were still joking. The signal beacon began to flash in the helicopter, and this meant that they had arrived at a certain position. They all needed to take weapons and parachute. The brave soldiers prepared their machine guns and were ready to carry out a dangerous and difficult mission. Now they were finally at the target, and the pilot said so. The determined captain ordered his Alpha Squad soldiers to prepare for battle, and the first of the soldiers began to parachute. They disembarked from the helicopter on some hill, gradually jumping down the rope. The captain immediately asked Luo Zheng if he was worried since this was his first mission. The hero only showed that everything was fine, after which he began his descent. Holding a machine gun in his hands, he bravely descended to the ground in order to continue the mission. Having descended in full force, all the soldiers were ready for battle, and gradually moved through the forest area. The helicopter began to gradually fly away, and the captain ordered to continue entering the jungle. Having examined the area, the detachment concluded that the area was clean and at the moment everything was safe. After contacting headquarters, the captain asked when the enemy would arrive. He was told that he needed to start on time, eat well, and return as early as possible. Then the captain announced the gathering and ordered to give him a map, then turn on everyone's headphones and check the equipment. Now they are 30 kilometers from their destination, and must arrive before 12 o'clock, for this they need to check the time. The brave warriors looked at their watches to see if their time was accurate, and everything was in order. After which, they set off and had to walk 30 kilometers. We slowly made our way through the jungle and inspected the area to detect the enemy. Watching the newcomer, the commander thought that he really underestimated this guy, and he deserves to be in the ranks of the elite special forces. Events continued to occur 2 hours later. The captain ordered everyone to stop and take a short break. One of the soldiers asked him what he thought about this. In front of them was the very road that leads to their western border. 25 kilometers east of this road is the mountain settlement, from which prohibited substances are supplied. The captain ordered the 2 soldiers to prepare traps and defend the south together, and the rest will camouflage themselves 5 kilometers west of the road and then set up an ambush on a hill near the path to meet the villains with a complete siege. After explaining the soldiers' positions, the captain asked Luo Zhang where he planned to take his sniper position. The hero began to have doubts, and he thought that they were going to surround 100 people when there were only 5 of them. The man could not understand what the guy was going to tell him. The experienced soldier pointed to a position on the mountain. From there they would be able to see the entire road without any blind spots, the highest position being the best for a sniper. The recruit was also asked to be careful and take this point, which the captain himself told her about. The guy looked clearly worried, he was tormented by doubts. Having taken a position, they began checking communications, using microphones and headphones to communicate with each other. At the same time, Luo Zheng felt that something was wrong here, and he remembered the words of Yurina Lan Xiong, which she said that this is an imperfect secret mission, and the enemies also know the best positions, better is not always the most suitable. At that moment, he thought that he urgently had to change his position. Some time later, the hero changed his position and took a completely different one, having previously left his sniper equipment at another point. As it turned out, several soldiers were very close, and the hero thought about what Yurin Lan Xiong once told him that it is necessary to be able to anticipate enemy counterattacks. The highest points are the highest priority for enemy attack. Then the hero told his allies that he felt that something was wrong here. One of the soldiers thought that perhaps something was really wrong with them there. They say that newcomers to the battlefield cannot have an accurate premonition, but constant accuracy is also bad. Captain said that Luo Zhang may be very nervous, however, everyone should be on guard. It was just a vague feeling that he couldn't even explain to them, but he hoped he was wrong. An allied soldier named Jin Dao said that enemies were approaching, and the hero immediately began taking aim with his sniper rifle. Through the sight he saw blurry silhouettes of people, and gradually began to increase his approach. Watching the people walking along with the horses, he felt that something was wrong here, because his sensations intensified even more. He immediately decided to tell the captain about this, that there was a problem. If they were really dealers in illegal substances, they would not walk around without any protection. And their mission at the moment is to stop the import of prohibited substances, so they must act, even if it is a trick. After considering his actions, the captain decided to contact the informant, and ordered the others to retreat if things did not go according to plan and to head to the rally point. With horror, the man realized that something had happened to the contact and he was not answering. While watching the people, the soldiers discovered that they had begun to enter the jungle. The hero also saw this and, using an optical sight, observed the actions of each of them. One of the people started shooting with a sniper rifle, and hit the hero's sniper equipment, which he deliberately left as a trap. As soon as the shot was noticed, Luo Zhang immediately announced to the commander that he had seen a sniper. And he said that the enemy position had not been determined, and he would remove it as quickly as possible, and all the other soldiers needed to hide. If he had not changed his mind, he would already be dead. A little nervous about his first mission, the guy was still going to find the villain wherever he was hiding, because his brothers would be in danger until he found him. That's when he realized he had to take a risk. Having cheated, he noticed the enemy position and was ready to shoot to kill. Using his skill, he knew that he would now finish off the enemy sniper and gain an advantage on the battlefield. Many shots were also fired at the rest of the soldiers. It was an anti-siege trap, and the captain ordered all the brothers to retreat. Many soldiers dressed in civilian clothes fired at the Allied army. At the same time, the hero understood that this was truly a ruthless trap. They lured them in a small group until they showed themselves. Their snipers would certainly clear out the identified targets. Eventually, they will surround them and simultaneously attack from all directions. Fortunately, after the first shot the sniper was hit, whether he died or survived, he suffered a lot. Taking aim again, he knew that the sniper knew his position, just as he knew his. The only option was shooting blindly, but he only had one chance. Taking aim at the approximate location of the enemy sniper, he decided to take a blind shot. Unfortunately, it was too far to determine exactly where to shoot. There was no time, so it was necessary to retreat. The brave warrior made his way through the dense jungle, and ran as quickly as possible to avoid being shot. Hiding behind a tree, the guy was thinking about why he wasn't shot, and wanted to understand whether he had killed the sniper, but then he realized that in such a large group there was definitely more than one sniper. Looking back, he saw something terrifying. Behind him there were a huge number of soldiers who almost noticed him. Fearing their approach, the guy knew that he had to act. The enemy soldiers were approaching the hero with great speed, but he understood that he would now fight back. Coming out from behind the tree, he began to conduct aimed fire with his pistol directly at the enemies. Several enemies were easily defeated and he continued to shoot at the villains who were approaching. Fortunately, all approaching enemies were easily destroyed. Then the hero decided to find out how things were going with the commander, but there was no contact with him. Unfortunately, he realized that his allies had been caught. Immediately after this, the microphone was broadcast for him to surrender or pardon. But Luo Zheng had absolutely no intention of doing this, and decided to fight back to the last. There were an incredibly large number of enemies, and the hero continued to fight them back. Feeling approaching steps, he realized that the enemies were getting closer every second. As it turned out, these were dogs that caught the hero's trail and began to run towards him in order to attack. He immediately began to shoot them so that they would not reveal his position, and he continued to track down the enemy. There were about 100 dealers of illegal substances in this group, and the same number of enemies are pursuing him. And there are still people in them to pursue his brothers. There are an incredibly huge number of them here. In the middle of him, someone was already shouting that the enemy was in the west, and it was necessary to catch him. The guy understood that he had to kill his opponents, otherwise he would not escape. Using available means, he immediately began to prepare for an enemy attack, and laid a homemade mine. Hiding in cover, he began to expect the enemy to attack, and wanted to destroy those who approached him. Another dog was tracking the path, and behind it were several people who were heading to kill the hero. The villains exploded on a homemade mine, which the hero himself planted, and easily neutralized several dozen opponents that were in his way. In the end, he got rid of the opponents who were near him. Looking at his watch, he realized that the collection point was in a different direction and he needed to approach it. With horror, he realized that he did not know whether his brothers were safe or not. There would be a fierce battle, and he must restore his strength using the hereditary technique. Before we could use the technique, several more shots were fired, which were very close. Realizing that a battle could not be avoided, the hero continued to fight and aimed at his enemies with his sniper rifle. Fortunately, he heard a familiar voice and realized that they were his brothers. Relief filled his heart, knowing that he was not alone in this situation. With the support of his comrades, he could hope for support and joint efforts to escape the trap or effectively counter the enemies. This gave him new confidence and hope for success in a difficult situation. Taking aim, he discovered that they were allied machine gunners attacking the enemies. The captain was also with them, and they fought bravely, firing back from the insolent enemy. Many enemy soldiers were killed in this battle. They were afraid to attack further, and simply stood in their positions. The enemies discovered the sniper and did not want to go into battle anymore, but the commanders ordered an attack, because there were only 5 enemies. One of the enemy commanders was easily killed with a well-aimed shot straight to the head. The commander was proud of him, and the shots were faster. The shots were so accurate. It was definitely Luo Zheng. They were really saved. All enemy soldiers within a radius of several hundred meters were destroyed. Continuing to conduct aimed fire, the hero ordered the captain and his crew to retreat, and he was going to cover them. Coming closer to the guy, the captain asked how he was. He was fine for now, but he wasn't sure he could hold them off any longer, so he needed to retreat. The captain ordered to retreat as quickly as possible, and not waste time while they were covered by the sniper. Also, the experienced military man understood that they had an information leak, and it was urgently necessary to report this to the commander. Due to the fact that the headphones from one of the soldiers got to the enemy, everyone needs to turn off communications and not allow themselves to be detected by the radar of enemy bases. Soon they should all meet. The angry commander ordered everyone to stay alive because they all had to return to headquarters together. With lightning speed, all the soldiers began to break their headsets with microphones so that the enemy could not hear them. At the same time, the hero realized that he was now on his own. Using his sniper rifle, he repelled the attacks of many rivals, and fought bravely in an unequal battle. The villains were advancing, but he still continued to fight and defended himself with a pistol. Suddenly, he discovered that one of the opponents had a large number of grenades. Then he realized that after such a long chase, it was time for him to build a good surprise. I moved further. The enemies searched the bodies of their allies to help them and take weapons from them. But the grenade, which was in the form of a trap, was unnoticed, and it exploded, thereby taking the lives of a large number of soldiers. The explosive trap worked even too well. This is because this squad is completely unprepared compared to the previous ones. There was also no time to think. Now it was more important to catch up with the rest of the allies. The hero began to head towards the point of retreat, and knew that he needed to take fewer small steps, and more long ones, go straight, and not crookedly, through the hillocks, and not through the ditch. Having arrived at the coordinates, he realized that the retreat should be somewhere here. Approaching the point, he breathed a sigh of relief, and did not think that he could arrive 15 minutes earlier than the others. And then he realized that he had come a long way to get away from his pursuers. It's good that he had a poem that Yurine Lan Xiong came up with. This was the girl whom it was impossible not to miss. Her radiance and unique energy made hearts skip a beat, and memories of her remained in the memory like bright colors on a canvas, filling life with unforgettable moments, making us believe in miracles and warm communication. There was some noise nearby, and the guy thought that one of his brothers had come. Feeling something was wrong, he realized that there might be enemies near him. Alertness and caution were paramount in such moments. Every sound, movement and shadow could be signs of the presence of a potential threat. His trained instinct and experience helped him remain vigilant and ready to act if a threat arose. With horror in his voice, he exclaimed that the enemies were nearby. Realizing that he was in an ambush, the surprise and swiftness of the situation forced him to quickly switch to defense and search for opportunities to get out of the difficult situation. In such moments it was important to keep cool and make instant decisions for defense and maintaining your own safety. At the same time, hiding, the hero did not understand why the enemies knew about their rally point. What if the commander and brothers were ambushed? Suddenly, the guy heard someone calling him quietly. It was one of the allies who was sitting on a tree and making sounds similar to birdsong. At that moment, Luo Zheng realized that this was one of his allies. The Union soldier said that the rally point had turned into a trap and wanted to know if the guy had seen the other soldiers and the captain. Then the hero said that they should have arrived here before him, and was surprised that the soldier did not see them. As it turned out, he searched the surrounding area. The collection point is completely surrounded, and they will say goodbye to their lives. If they approach it, there are still enemies in the area. If it goes on like this, it will become even more difficult to retreat. Perhaps the captain also understood the situation and hid, waiting for them, but they still did not understand how they would find the rest of the allies. After thinking a little, Luo Zheng proposed to deliberately provoke the enemy. Hearing this, the experienced soldier was truly surprised. The guy was going to shoot, to attract their attention, and distract them, and he could hide and wait for the captain and the others, and then the hero would meet with all of them as soon as he got rid of his pursuers. The elite group soldier couldn't let this happen. If anyone had to distract the enemies at the risk of themselves, it had to be him. Luo was against this. In this forest it is difficult to predict, even if the enemy hides behind him. In addition, the main character knew how to contact the captain and the others. However, he thinks that the soldier will be able to contact them. After a few seconds, Zheng decided to act, and decided that he would be the right person to take such a risky step. He headed into the forest and began to run towards the enemies, while shooting with a sniper rifle and provoking them. Watching the runaway soldier, the experienced fighter knew that this guy was really very strong. The enemies immediately took the bait and began to follow the fleeing soldiers. They shouted that the intruder was in a southwestern direction and continued to follow him. Suddenly, the soldier saw someone giving him a signal. He also started waving a branch from the tree to attract attention. It turned out that these were really his allies, who sent a signal using a secret code. Some time later, the entire group of soldiers was assembled. The captain wanted to find out from the soldier why those shots suddenly rang out, and why the newly arrived soldier was alone. Meanwhile, Luo Zhang made his way through the dense jungle and thought that even the ancestral breathing technique would not work, because fatigue would kill him if he continued to run away. Deciding to rest, he began to aim at the enemies, taking out his sniper rifle. After looking a little closer, he discovered a very interesting detail. Using an optical sight, the guy saw that it was an army of wild wolves. Then he decided to make his shot using a sniper rifle, and he immediately killed one of the enemy soldiers who was talking to someone. Unfortunately, at the same time, the guy did not reveal his location. This bastard's reaction was too fast. A large number of shots began to be heard, but fortunately, the hero managed to hide behind a stone. He did not understand where the enemies got such a large amount of ammunition, and they knew his location, and now they were trying to cross the river with brute force. He needed to leave. While under heavy fire, he began to run into the distance to escape from the enemies, who were gradually catching up with him. Looking back, he saw a huge number of enemy soldiers approaching him, and they were getting closer with every second. Sometimes he turned towards them in order to deliver control shots, and thereby shoot back from enemies who approached too far. Looking around, he realized that it would soon rain heavily, and he would see if these scumbags could continue to pursue him. Events continued to occur 2 hours later, near the collection point. With apprehension, the guy watched what was next to him and looked around, because he was afraid that the enemies were quite close. Fortunately, he discovered that his pursuers had lost him, but he did not understand how to return to his brothers. Suddenly, he discovered that one of the soldiers was running somewhere. Realizing that the fleeing soldier was indeed very skillful, he pointed a pistol at him and ordered him to get out. The allied soldier exclaimed that he belonged so that Luo Zhang would not shoot at him. The guy said that everyone was worried about him, and asked to go with him to the allies. Walking to the departure point, the guy wanted to know if everything was okay with his allies. This was really the case, only he was missing there. Now they were discussing what they would do next, and he could speak out, since he had already returned. The captain was truly glad that Luo Zhang returned because they were very worried about him. The man exclaimed that the hero knows which situations I have not encountered, and the brothers want to hear any suggestions in this regard. The experienced fighter asked the new recruit if he thought they should investigate or call for reinforcements to assist in their retreat. All the soldiers hesitated, but still listened carefully to the newcomer, who was thinking about the answer. Without thinking twice, the hero said that he understood everything that they were feeling now, but these people clearly did not wish them well. They had very experienced soldiers on their side, and they had very little information. Therefore, decisively, Luo Zhang said that he would suggest retreating in this situation. Experienced fighters could not believe what they heard. They could not imagine how this was possible in this situation. At the same time, the hero understood that he could not tell them about the contract of the wild wolves, because they would not believe him. One of the soldiers suggested that the captain first contact the regiment and ask Xing Ci to leave first. It was his first time on the battlefield, and besides, they had unforeseen circumstances. After thinking a little, the captain realized that this might actually be the right decision. The newcomer said that if he did this, then later, in the army, someone would definitely break a couple of his ribs. And let everything be fair, then he wanted to know what the captain's next actions would be. The determined man explained that they could not contact the regiment in time. As soon as they found out that something had happened to them, they would immediately send reinforcements. Now it was more important to find out as much as possible about these people and what they were up to. If his memory did not fail him, then on the map there was a mountain village, not far from here. This was the village of Xingmiao, a gathering place for traders of illegal substances, a group of peoples from a mountainous, often poor and sparsely populated area. This way they can infiltrate the village there and get more information. Using disguise, they could also pretend to be dealers in illegal substances. The man immediately assumed that hundreds of people were hunting them, and it's unlikely that anyone had not heard that such a large-scale operation was taking place. Then the captain suggested that they first arrange a halt for today, and begin their mission tomorrow morning. Meanwhile, Luo Zheng was thinking that his allies did not know about the existence of a detachment of wild wolves, and he had to be extremely careful. The next day came, a team of brave soldiers disguised themselves and made their way into the village, namely into the cafe. They passed through a huge number of soldiers who were defending the area around them. When one of the soldiers was looking for these clothes, he learned that the village only provides a place, and is not directly related to transactions. Strangers should not bring weapons, sell prohibited substances, or otherwise disturb the locals. It was really surprising that drug dealers actually adhere to the rules. As long as they don't cause problems, the locals are not against drug dealers. The captain suddenly heard someone coming. Fortunately it was just a waitress who asked what the men would order. The experienced soldiers didn't even know what to answer, and simply looked indignantly at the lady who approached them. Like a bandit, said that he brought his brothers to a deal, and asked him to bring them the best dishes that they had, and money was not a problem. A little worried, the waitress asked them to continue, and she quietly left. At the same time, one of the soldiers exclaimed that they had no money, but according to the rules they had to pay. Some time later, on their table there was a huge number of different and tasty dishes. After looking at all the dishes, the captain ordered his soldiers to fly in, because he was sure that the military forces would understand their situation. Wars began to quickly and without regret absorb food, because you cannot change the world on an empty stomach. Next to them, people were also eating and talking about how some soldiers had decided to intercept illegal goods and also killed a bunch of people. As it turned out, the head of the gang even came to the village to offer a reward for the heads of those same soldiers. The soldiers could not believe what they heard, because offering money for the capture of people is not very in the spirit of the owners of criminal gangs. Perhaps this is really the only way to give people the opportunity to earn money and hire them to work. It was indeed so. The couple of opponents he met were very experienced on the battlefield. Luo Zheng guessed that they were definitely not locals, under the control of the head of a criminal gang. If the people are in the village, then the soldiers cannot stay there for long, and it is necessary to split up in order to act according to the plan. The soldiers began to make their way into the kitchen to ask the cook what he put in the dish. There was so much salt that they couldn't even taste it. The worried guys suddenly started asking the waitress where the toilet was. And then together they headed to different toilets to escape the place. The captain told the demolition soldier that in a few seconds it was time, and there was an explosion that blew up most of the building in which the soldiers were eating. Because of the fire, all the local residents began to run away, as did the soldiers themselves. The villagers began to think it was a terrorist attack and a fire started in the cafe. One of the soldiers ran towards them to find out what was happening here. He grabbed one of the residents and began interrogating him. Having grabbed the main character, the soldier was overcome with horror, and he did not understand what kind of person he was. Pointing his finger at him, the concerned soldier said that there was something wrong with this guy and he needed to be captured. At the same time, the experienced captain had already neutralized the soldier and took his weapon away. And he said that these soldiers are not hospitable, they are not good at organizing fights now, and it is better to quickly run away from here. Heading into the forest, the brave soldiers put on their equipment again and were ready to repel the enemy attack. The enemy warriors were very powerful, although they just ate some food, there was no need to be so angry. The main character turned around and saw another soldier approaching. The guy shouted that the dealers in illegal substances also decided to hunt them. Enemy soldiers pursued them from the west and now the east and north are blocked by traffickers of illegal substances. They were almost surrounded on all sides. The captain gave the demolitionist the task of covering the entire perimeter of Minami in order to undermine the enemy, because he wanted to see if these bastards would risk pursuing them further. And the sniper had a mission to return to 100M and ambush them. The demo man happily began laying mines in order to surprise his enemies, creating cunning traps in the most unexpected places and mysterious patterns of dangerous devices ready to explode at any moment. And after that, they will all have to follow to the south, carefully assessing each step and synchronizing their actions in order to return 100 meters and take turns covering the squad, providing reliable protection and allowing each member of the group to act carefully at a critical moment. Once ready, the squad headed to the positions previously announced to them by the captain, following his precise instructions and remaining vigilant throughout the route to the designated point, ready to act according to the plan of action developed by the team leader. Because they are a special unit of the Hua army, and if the enemies want to fight them, then they should try, if of course they have the courage. This unit is famous for their professionalism, strategic thinking and uncompromising dedication to their task. The enemies should seriously think before calling to the battle of these experienced and brave warriors.